Hi. Thank you for doing the slides. Who's going to change it to the next one? I could ask.
The chief is going to take care of it. I showed him how. Do you want to do the ceremonial award first, or do you want to do reports?
Let's move that up.
Yeah, I think so.
Where are we going to put that?
After minutes, we'll move ceremonial up, and then reports.
That sounds right to me.
Okay.
Yes. Are you okay with that? So we're going to put the award before the reports. Sure. You good with that? All right. Okay. Do we have everybody up here?
You do?
Yeah. Good over here? Good over there? All right. Good evening. Thanks, everyone, for coming. The meeting will come to order. Madam Clerk, would you please read the adequate notice compliance statement?
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the City Clerk's office in preparation of the Council Annual Meeting Notice dated December 15, 2022, which was properly distributed and posted per statutory requirements. Please be advised the fire exits are to my right, your left, and at the back of the room.
Okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Ms. Allen? Here. Ms. Fox?
Here.
Ms. Hairston?
Here.
Ms. Hamlet?
Here.
Dr. Levine?
Here.
Mr. Miniger?
Here.
President Vartan?
Present. Thank you. I will ask Chief Evers to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Madam Clerk, please read the notices regarding closed session and hearings and comments.
A closed session meeting is authorized by state statute, was announced and held prior to the start of this meeting, and the known items for discussion were listed on the published closed session agenda. Please be advised that council meetings are broadcast live on Comcast Channel 36 and Verizon Channel 30, and rebroadcast on Thursdays and Saturdays on HTTV on Comcast 36 and Verizon 33. When invited to speak, please come to the lectern. Clearly state your name and address, spell your last name, and speak into the podium microphone so that your comments can be understood by all and properly recorded. Whenever an audience or council member reads from a prepared statement, please give or email a copy to the City Clerk's office at cityclerk@cityofsummit.org. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments to approximately 3 minutes or so in length. Unless you are using an electronic device to follow the meeting agenda or need it for professional contact purposes, please turn it off. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now on to the minutes for approval. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the regular and closed session meetings of January 17th, 2023?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And the minutes are approved. Okay, so we're going to go a little bit out of order because we've got some people here. So we're going to do the Fire Department Volunteer Retirement Recognition. And so I'll ask Chief Evers to proceed with that.
Do you need the mayor? Mayor.
Oh, very good.
So, do you want to read it?
many of you know, this is Mr. Bruce Cooper. After 42 years of dedicated service to the City of Summit Fire Department, volunteer firefighter Bruce Cooper advised Chief Evers of his decision to retire from the Summit Fire Department effective December 31, 2022. Bruce Cooper started with the Summit Fire Department's volunteer division on October 21, 1980, assigned to the Union Hose Company. Prior to him coming to Summit, he was an auxiliary firefighter with the New York City Fire Department. Within our volunteer division, he has held the rank of both lieutenant and captain. During his 42 years of service, Bruce has been involved in many fire department committees and has received numerous letters of appreciation, as well as volunteered countless hours of his off time to the department. Bruce has maintained an outstanding active status record throughout his career as a volunteer. He has served this department in the highest tradition of the fire service. Please let us all congratulate Bruce on his retirement from Summit Fire Department's volunteer ranks.
I'd like to say a couple words about Bruce. 42 years, I've been here 33 years, and my first experience with Bruce as a volunteer. Bruce has always been there. His attendance record has been spotless for 42 years. He's been a mentor to almost everybody in this room today who's visiting here, all our guests, retired firemen, great mentor, great leadership, always had a smile, always at every call, and most importantly, he was always there for a sympathetic ear to come through somebody had a problem or had a call, and he was always there for us. So, great experience working with him. He's one of our own. Not many guys in the fire service do 42 years. It's kind of a big milestone. On the career side, more importantly, as a volunteer. So we appreciate all your time. And with that, we have your badge and your shield that we put up there for you. Awesome. President can't with us tonight. They're out of town, so they made something for you on behalf of the Summit FMVA.
On behalf of the career firefighters, FMVA 54 for Summit Fire Department, we want to thank Bruce for his 42 years of service. We had a plaque made for him, recognizing his 42 years of service in the Union Hose Company. Congratulations.
We have one more special guest. Want to come up, Reese?
Sorry.
Want to take up words?
Yeah, I just wanted to say
Yeah,
he's always been a great person and a grandfather. He's dedicated his time to being an amazing, awesome firefighter who has always been there, helpful, and I just want to thank him so much. Please give him another congratulations.
Usually I do my speech from memory, but I just don't want to leave anything out tonight. So I would like to thank Chief Evers, Deputy Chief Mbimbo, the officers and firefighters of this great department for this honor tonight. It's been a wonderful 42 years on one of the finest departments in the state. My fellow firefighters' commitment, professionalism, and their vast knowledge has left a large imprint on my career. Once again, thank you all for coming. This honor I will never forget. And the friendships that have endured will continue to endure forever and ever. Thank you.
Everybody just be very careful there. Choke me up.
Yeah, me too. Matt?
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. We'll give a sec for people to shuffle. If anybody needs a tissue, we've got them up here.
She got me, I'd tell you.
Yeah.
Right?
Very.
Well, that was really nice. All right, we'll get back to the order of the meeting. We will move on to reports, and we'll start with Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Council President. That was a great way to start the meeting. Okay, just a little bit. So, not surprisingly, pedestrian and vehicle safety are important topics that are addressed by the Summit Police Department and our communications team on a continuing schedule, especially during back-to-school time and when the warm weather arrives. Over the past few weeks, we have renewed our focus on pedestrian and vehicle safety following several serious accidents. A child in a crosswalk on his way to school was struck by an elderly driver but was not seriously injured, thank God. In 2 separate incidents, intoxicated males were struck crossing the street, and we know one was not in a crosswalk. Neither was seriously injured, thankfully. Enforcement efforts are ongoing and have been increased, and we continue to look at ways to re-engineer and improve roadways. Chief Zagorski and I recently wrote a letter to the editor asking for drivers to slow down and for pedestrians to remain alert, use the crosswalks, and obey traffic signals. Most importantly, we are asking you to look out for one another. Over the next couple of months, the police department and city social media pages will contain important safety tips for pedestrians, drivers, and cyclists. Be on the lookout for our posts, and please share this information with your neighbors and family. The other day, I was walking across the crosswalk by Winberry's, and a woman in front of me stepped off the walkway, never looking up, hands like this, looking at her phone. She didn't know if a car was coming or not, and I couldn't resist. I tapped her on the shoulder, and I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, I think it's really a good idea, even though you're in the crosswalk and you have the right to be here, that you should look to see if a car's coming." She said, "Well, I'm in the crosswalk." I said, I get that, so am I. I said, "But would you rather be right or injured? I mean, please, you need to take care of that. Take care of yourself, watch." And yes, you're right. Once you're in the crosswalk, you have the right away, but, you know, we have to be mindful of everything that's going on around us. And people have to slow down. The other thing I wanted to raise very briefly was I received an anonymous letter from some residents complaining about some construction going on in their neighborhood and so on and so forth. Well, I have no way to respond to an anonymous letter. And if you see that there's a construction issue in your neighborhood, call the dispatch number 908-273-0051 and report it, because it's happening right then. It doesn't help that I get an anonymous letter X number of days later and I can't respond because I don't know who sent the letter. No return address, nothing. So please use the Civic Plus or call the dispatch if you have complaints and problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'll move on to City Administrator Michael Rogers for your report.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, everyone. Just 3 items. The Summit Department of Community Programs is hosting a Valentine's Day themed ice skating event on Saturday, February 11th. The free event will take place from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. in the Elm Street parking lot. Skating sessions will be offered every half hour. Skates will be provided free of charge. Attendees will have the opportunity to make a Valentine and chocolate-covered strawberry and enjoy bonfires, music, and free hot beverages. Pre-registration is not required. Second item, registration is now open for our swim lesson program at the Summit Family Aquatic Center. Please go to summitcommunityprograms.com to register or for more information. And then lastly, mark your calendars. The next Summit Free Market is on Saturday, February 11th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Events are held at on the second Saturday of every month at the transfer station, located at 40 New Providence Avenue. Stop by to drop off yard sale quality items you don't want anymore, or browse other donated items, all for free. And that's all I have for this evening. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, City Administrator. Good evening, everyone. I, like so many others, was shocked and saddened to hear of the sudden and tragic loss of Councilwoman Eunice Dwumfer of Sayreville this last week. Yesterday, Mayor Radist and Council sent a letter to the Mayor and Council in Sayreville expressing our condolences. Delia and Jamie for participating in the Facebook Live event that we held on January 24th. Thanks to Megan and Amy in the communications office and everyone who commented, asked questions, or just watched. These events are definitely meeting our goals of informally and virtually engaging with the community. We're answering questions and providing information. They will continue, and next week on Tuesday, February 14th at noon, Lisa, Allen, and I will be hosting the next one, so we hope that you will join us for that. Next, I would like to update the community on two topics of interest. First is the Maple Street closure, or potential closure, and I will ask somebody, maybe Aaron, can you click to the next thing for me there?
Hit escape, Aaron. Is there a tab that you're looking for, Councilman?
I'm looking for the Maple Street one. Please.
I'm not aware of one. If you, did you provide one?
Yeah. Yeah. What email can I send that to?
Look on the desktop, Aaron.
Well, I could tell you about it, but the visual aid is really helpful.
Let's see if it's on there.
There's another couple slides there. Yeah, there we go, right? That's probably it. Nope, that's the other one. All right, well, tell you what. I'll tell you about it, and then we'll put it out on the city's social media. So here's what has been completed so far as relates to a proposed potential seasonal closure of Maple Street. First of all, we have had initial community input. We have met with restaurant owners. We've also met with some property owners as well. We had SDI's presentation to council that we almost got a review of. And then we've also had some engagement with boards and commissions as well. The result of that and the result of all this engagement with members of council, both formally and informally, is that I think throughout the community and on the dais, there is broad consensus for some sort of seasonal closure of Maple Street and not a permanent street closure. So of course, there are still people who think we should close Maple Street permanently all the time. There are still people who think we should not close Maple Street at all, ever, right? We think that there's broad community support for something in the middle of that. What we're gonna do, what's happening now that we're in early February, is we're gonna define the seasonal closure timing. We're gonna get legal and safety requirements, and then we're gonna go over fees and design. So the potential results of those things are that we will reach a consensus on what is the outdoor dining season in Summit. We'll assign some dates to that. We will define what our legal path is. We will be consulting with our city attorney and what is required from the state and the Department of Transportation. And then we will also confirm the safety aspects of it as well. Then, in late February and early March, we will continue, of course, with community engagement. We still receive a number of emails. Then we'll take official actions that include a detailed street closing plan, resolutions, and ordinances, assuming that this makes sense and that all the other pieces are in place. So, we want to make sure we are going about this in a way that ensures that we have the legal authority to do it, and that we have the safety elements in place in order to do it. And then we'll communicate very clearly with the community about where we've landed, and what the next steps are. So I have really a very nice graphic here, and we'll share it. We will share it on the city's Facebook, and we'll put it on the website, and we will talk about that, I'm sure, in our next Facebook Live and at the next council meeting, and we'll have a number of discussions about that. So the next thing that I would like to do is update the community on Broad Street West. So we have two things related to Broad Street West on the agenda this evening. Therefore, I think the time is right to briefly and generally provide an outline for the community of what is happening and what is likely to happen in the coming weeks and months. So as I have said many times, we have directed the redevelopers and our planner to go back and come up with a proposal that met 3 criteria. First of which being that it's compliant with the redevelopment plan. Second, that we've emphasized the importance of on-site parking and affordable housing. And third, that we have clear and transparent financials. While pursuing the creation of a proposal that met those requirements, the community was invited to see an alternative proposal that was not created by the city. The meeting held at the Elks and hosted by some organizers of Residents for Summit was attended by some members of council, the developers, our planner, Phil Abramson, and our administrator, Michael Rogers. Phil and Michael reached out and have since engaged with some of the organizers and professionals who put a considerable amount of time and effort into that proposal. Council members were informed about this and thankful for Phil and Michael taking the initiative, and we have endorsed the continuation of these conversations. There are a couple reasons why. First, because our words and our actions are aligned here. We said we were listening to the community, and we meant it. Second, because if there is a deal to be had, we want the next conversation, the next version of this proposal to be something that a large part of the community can be pleased with and hopefully ultimately support. So I will now outline where we will go from here. And there are 3 disclaimers that I will make up front. And again, we're going to have a graphic that we'll share with this, and we'll put it on the city's Broad Street West website. And if you are subscribed to the updates, you'll get them. If you are watching at home and would like to subscribe to the updates, go to the city website and click notifications. So there are 3 disclaimers I'll make up front about what I'm going to say. First is, the time frame that I'm going to discuss is an estimate. Second, the process that I will outline is not comprehensive. It is not meant to include every conversation that will be had, nor every meeting that will be held, nor every official action that may be taken. It is meant to give a general sense of direction as we move forward. The entire thing, the third disclaimer, is the entire thing is dependent on both the city and the developers' mutual agreement that a deal is still possible. This is functionally the most important piece, and this is the piece that can change at virtually any time. So with that being said, I will say in February, what we are going to do is receive and evaluate an updated proposal from the developers. The intended outcome of that conversation is to confirm financial viability. At a basic level, is this possible for the developers to build financially, and is it something, yes or no, that the city is willing to even entertain? So who will be involved in that decision-making? Mayor Radist, Common Council, and the Broad Street West Financial Advisory Committee that we formed towards the fall of last year. Assuming everything goes well with that, we still have a deal, we still have financial viability, then in March, we will work to finalize the proposed design and the financial terms. The intended outcome of that is to have a comprehensive proposal that can be presented to the public at a town hall event and at many other less formal events. Who will be involved in that throughout March? We will have Mayor Radist, the Common Council, the Broad Street West Financial Advisory Committee, our various boards and commissions. I don't even want to get into naming some because it's going to be a ton of them. And of course, the community members. And then, assuming, again, everything continues to go well, in April will be all about community engagement. We will receive feedback, and hopefully, we will find consensus among the stakeholders. And that'll mean we'll talk about it at council meetings, we'll talk about it at additional informal meetings, we'll talk about it at coffee shops, and we'll have things available in the lobby here and things available in the library. And this is going to be a very wide-ranging, broad effort to get people up to speed on what we have at that time. And who will be involved, of course, is Mayor Rada's Common Council and the entire community at large. And then, assuming that we can find some consensus on that proposal, whatever that looks like at that time, then in May and June, we will start to move into official actions, where, if necessary, we'll amend the redevelopment plan. We can have a planning board hearing and confirm master plan consistency, and then hopefully, ultimately, execute a redevelopment agreement and a financial plan. So, again, I think it's probably important for me to go back and repeat. Time frame is an estimate. The process I'm outlining is not comprehensive, and the entire thing is dependent upon mutual understanding of the city and the developers that we're going to keep moving forward, and that can change. So, again, we'll share this with the community on our Facebook, on our city website, and we'll get this out to people. Finally, I would like to invite Chief Zagorski, I see you, yes, thank you, Chief, to give us a quick update on crime statistics and the ongoing efforts of the Summit Police Department. Since I've asked him to do this last minute, and because we have a very full agenda, we're not going to open up for questions at this time, but please think about the information the Chief is going to provide. If you have questions, please email us and him, and his email will be there on the last slide. And then we can decide if a follow-up from the Chief at the next council meeting makes sense. So thank you in advance for your understanding, and I will turn it over to you, Chief Zagorski.
Thank you. I take it the crowd is not here for me, but
Chief, your report is on that desktop. Just double click.
Yep, okay.
At the very top there.
All right, through you, Council President. Tonight, we're going to go over some statistics for crime here in Summit over the last year and some of the things that we've been doing to address those issues. Before I get into that, I wanted to show a few slides that depict the historical crime data in Summit. Get that started. And the purpose of doing that is to really put the statistics that you see today into perspective, into historical perspective. All right, so just bear with me. This is, and one of
Use
the
the mouse pad. It's not a touch screen.
oh, okay.
There you go.
And one of the other reasons is that obviously we had an uptick in crime, specifically in stolen vehicles over the last couple of years, and it's created a lot of concern, understandably, a lot of anxiety, understandably. One of the things that I've been hearing quite often is that crime is out of control in Summit. This is the most crime that I've lived here all these years, and this is the most crime that I've ever seen. So some of this historical data, is going to address that issue. If it comes up.
All the way at the top.
I am at the, oh, there we go. There we are. Just to move these slides, it's just up and down, Rose?
Yeah.
There we go. That's the last one. We don't want to do that.
Use your the arrows up and down.
All right, that's, okay, my apologies. All right, these statistics represent the UCR crime index total. That's all crimes, okay? It spans over a 30-year period between 1990 and present date. This is the time frame that I actually have been here longer in Summit, so I could speak to this data. As you can see, going from left to right, left is 1990, all the way to the right is 2022. Consistent with national crime trends and state crime trends, crime was much higher into the 90s, and there was a slow progression down within crime with some blips along the way, but pretty much consistently going down. Now, the purpose for me, of me showing this slide is not to show that there was more crime years ago in Summit. Clearly there was. The purpose of showing you some of the slide is to point out, though, even when we had that higher crime here in Summit, the perception was that Summit is a safe community. It's considered one of the safest ones back then in New Jersey, one of the safest ones in Union County back then. Even with those higher numbers. Okay, we're just going to break it down. I showed you the total UCR crime index. This is the violent crime. That consists of murder, sexual assault, robbery, aggravated assault. Normally the UCR, they have their own category, but we have such very few, luckily, of these crimes in Summit. I consolidated them into one just to simplify things. As you can see, the trend spiked in 2002. That was with a total of 22 violent crimes, but it consistently remains low. All right, there's some years that it's really low, like maybe 3 reported violent crimes, but in the last 15, 20 years, that number consistently stays like between 8 and 10 in a given year. There's burglary. Again, left to right is 1990, the present date. You see that big number? We topped off in 1990 at 174 burglaries. Okay, to give you an idea where we're at today, when I get to 2022 statistics, we had 19 burglaries in Summit. So we're talking about, big spike. And again, even with that big number of 174, the perception of Summit and the Summit residences, Summit is a safe community. It was considered one of the safest towns in New Jersey, Union County, and in the country.
Chief, can I just make sure you're still in the mic so people can hear you at home?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
My apologies. This is larceny. That's just basically theft. It shows you the same thing. It's continuation, spiking in 1995, and then much lower going towards 2022, with some little spikes, but again, remaining low. Motor vehicle theft. As you can see again, the higher numbers. Back in 1994, we topped out at 80 stolen vehicles, okay? Now, I'm not trying to downplay the problem we have now, because it's the problem that we're dealing with, and it is a problem. But we're talking, in 2022, we had 26 stolen vehicles, okay? Again, a problem nonetheless, but just trying to put into historical perspective. Even with the high stolen vehicle rate going back in 94, the perception was Summit's a safe town. It was one of the safest towns in New Jersey, Union County, and the country. And I apologize for going away from the microphone.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Okay, here's your overall numbers. The total crime index in 2022 was 257. Okay, it was up slightly from 2021. It was basically the same as it was in 2022. Then, one of the reasons for that 20 crime difference is that in 2022, with some of the investigative things that we were doing to combat the stolen car problem, we were aggressively seeking out information and data so we could form a plan to fight it. And we were actually, when we would investigate one stolen car, we would go to a number of houses and have them check their Ring cameras, and it was identifying crimes that they normally they wouldn't see. What they saw on the Ring camera was someone maybe attempting the door handle of the car in the driveway. So we were identifying a lot of crimes that wouldn't have been identified otherwise, but because we were actually we were the ones looking for the crime. Okay, it wouldn't have been reported. Violent crime, that number was low for 2022. Now you can see it was down from 11 in 2021, For you math people out there, that's like about a 30% decrease. I'd like to do a victory lap and say, yeah, we got it down 30%, but we're talking about small numbers here, a very small, small change. Burglary, again, it was at 19. That was up 5 from 2021 and up another 4 from 2020. Larceny, it was a little less than 20 up from the previous year. And motor vehicle theft was up 2 from the previous year. But I'm going to get into the good news in that number in a moment. As you all know, in the past 3 years since COVID, car thefts have risen. Actually, in the state of New Jersey, unfortunately, Summit was in, they weren't exempt from that trend. And our numbers went up. We had enjoyed, when I showed this slide, about a 15-year time period when we were averaging only about 10 stolen cars. So when we went up to 31 in 2020, that was, a noticeable jump. To combat this problem, we introduced last year a two-pronged approach to addressing the problem. First, the policing end of it was, we placed a high priority on increased residential patrols, both high visibility and covert, along with continued data-driven operations to include surveillances of targeted areas and surveillance of specific vehicles, and working close with our law enforcement partners that were experiencing the same problem as we were. The second part of that plan, and which was one of the most important parts of the plan, was we had introduced an aggressive public awareness campaign through using such applications as Nixle and social media, sending out flyers, trying to keep the public informed, trying to change that public's behavior, and you know what behavior we're talking about, and that's taking the key fobs out of your car and locking your car. The results of these efforts, over the past year, Summit Police Department, we've made 18 arrests of suspected car thieves. These 18 individuals, they're a combination of adults and juveniles. In addition to the arrest, on at least 38 separate occasions, Summit Police Department officers have encountered these criminals attempting to steal cars and were cased in the area, and they chased them out of town, preventing the thefts. Detectives over the last years have recovered 22 of the 26 stolen vehicles reported last year. So, as indicated, most important was the campaign addressed to the public to raise awareness and try to change their behavior. We introduced this this two-pronged approach going back last year. It was met with a little bit of resistance, but as time went on, we got the cooperation of the public, and people started jumping on board, and it showed some pretty promising results. So the results have showed that over the last 5 months, we've only had 1 stolen car from the residential area. Obviously, you're all aware of the business that got hit last 2 weeks ago when 2 cars were taken out. But we've only had 1 taking from a residential area where the key fob was left in the car, and the car was unlocked. So clearly, the plan was working. Now we're still experiencing attempts. We're still getting reports, but they're fewer and far between. For example, we had a cluster of reports last weekend. There was like maybe 3 separate locations where attempts were made, but they were coming up, they were finding locked cars and no key fobs, so they were unsuccessful. Another promising anecdotal observation of last weekend's attempts where there were attempts made in parking lots of apartment complexes. Now, this is something that they were staying away from because people that parking complexes normally lock their cars and take the key fobs. Now, to me, it's an indication that the well is run dry, they're getting desperate, and they're trying locations that they normally wouldn't try. Also, now, in fact, I know you said a couple minutes, I got like 3 more minutes to address, just want to address residential burglaries. Recently, we had an uptick in residential burglaries. 4 residential burglaries were reported in December, and 2 were reported in January. All but 1 appear to be the work of organized burglary crews. There's no link with these burglary crews to the individuals that are stealing cars. The one that we did link to these crews, we had back in, I believe it was November, a resident on Hillcrest had an unsuccessful attempt at his house to enter the house. They were the people that were the car thieves. What happened there was he had cars in the driveway that were locked, no key fob, and on this one occasion, an individual came up to his front door, looked in, tried the door handle, unsuccessful, and he moved on. But that was the only one that we believe that are linked to the car thieves. The other ones are specific burglary crews. Most of these burglaries have been occurring in North Summit residential area along the Route 24 corridor. All of the homes have been unoccupied at the time of the burglaries. In some cases, they were unoccupied for multiple weeks, people on vacation that were away. These burglaries have been occurring during the daytime hours into the early evening, and forced entry is used to get into these residents going to the rear of the house. We have evidence that there's multiple suspects that are involved in each burglary, usually between 3 and 4 individuals in these crews. And what they've been taking is jewelry and cash. So the things that we're doing to address this recent problem is using the same methods that we were using, the increased patrol methods, surveillance methods that we were using with the stolen cars. The only difference is there's not we're not asking the public. There's really not much you could do besides hardening the target a little bit, like as far as locking your doors and all. But these people are breaking in, so they'll bypass that. What we do ask is that you just remain vigilant, keep an eye on your neighbor, and report anything suspicious stuff that you see in your neighborhood. Okay, so the question, well, that I'll end with, you've seen the crime stats. They're up in certain areas. They're concerning in certain areas, but they're manageable. So why is the perception now that the crime is out of control and it's far greater than crime's ever been in Summit? And the only thing that I can think of is that you guys are a more informed public now. Especially through social media and apps like Nixle. Summit Police Department, we issue more alerts, more information on crime than I could ever remember. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the people that have signed up for these applications and follow us on social media, you can see the increase in the information that we put out. So I'll just end with this, excuse me. In my 33 years here, over that time, I've always been, asked, and it was as recent as Friday, from people that are considering moving to town, people that have loved ones moving to town, or putting a business in town. They know you're a police officer, and they ask you, how is Summit? And my answer's been the same for 33 years. Summit is a great town. It's a safe town. But I always say, but it's a small city with 22,000 people, with 2 major highways and a major rail system going through it. So you can't be naive and to think nothing is going to happen. There is a small amount of crime, but in all, if you have an opportunity to move here, you'd be crazy not to. So I'll just end with that.
All right. Well, thank you, Chief. Thank you again. So if we can just scroll to your email, what we'll do is we'll have, again, thank you, Chief. Think about this. We'll have that presentation go up on the city website. Also, if you have questions, the Chief's email is on that presentation, and then you can email members of council as well, and we'll be happy to talk with you about it. So we have a relatively full agenda, so we're going to keep things moving on to the ordinances for introduction, and we have one out of finance, so I will turn that over to Councilmember Miniger.
Council President.
I'm sorry.
All due respect, I should read the title of the
You should do that first, yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy
I was
doing
just
that to
testing
the
you.
former president
I was
as well.
testing you. That's what I was doing.
Okay, bond ordinance, ID number 10145, bond ordinance providing for phases 2B, 3B, 4, 5, and 6 of the local units' allocable share of the flood mitigation facilities project of the joint meeting of Essex and Union counties by and in the city of Summit in the county of Union, state of New Jersey, appropriating $4,920,000 therefore, and authorizing issuance of $4,920,000 bonds or notes to finance the cost thereof.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now, Councilmember Miniger.
Thank you, Council President. This ordinance provides for Summit's share of the flood mitigation facilities project of the joint meeting of Essex and Union counties, a project that is designed to improve and extend the life of the facilities and equipment that handles our city's wastewater, among others, along with others, as part of the joint meeting. This project ensures that this critical component of our infrastructure is ready for major storm systems like hurricanes that have, in the past, in the recent past, pushed these facilities very close to disaster. The bonds issued as part of this ordinance in the amount of $4,920,000 will cover Summit's share of that project, after which FEMA will reimburse 90% of that cost. I move to introduce this ordinance.
I second.
Okay, and we have a hearing on that on the 21st of February.
Councilmember, we
assuming
should have a roll call.
We should do the roll call vote first, though, yeah.
Ms. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Fox?
Aye.
Ms. Hairston?
Aye.
Ms. Hamlet?
Aye.
Dr. Levine? Aye. Mr. Miniger?
Aye.
President Vartan?
Aye. You see, I should just follow the thing that you said that I should do. And then- That's fine. Okay. We will have a hearing on that, though, and it'll be the 21st of February, which is our next council meeting, same time and place here in this room. So we'll move on to resolutions, and we have two from Finance. Councilmember Miniger, please.
Thank you, Council President. This is number 10163, and this resolution authorizes the transfer of appropriations in the operating budget from accounts with a surplus to those that are over. This is a regular occurrence at the beginning and ending of every budget year. This particular transfer is in the amount of $33,000, and I move to adopt this resolution.
I second.
Okay. Any comments from members of council on that one? And comments from members of the community? All right, hearing none, I think we're ready for a vote on that. All those in favor? Oh, no, this one's a roll call vote, too.
Shall I call
Start
the
that.
roll?
Yes, please.
Ms. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Fox?
Aye.
Ms. Hairston?
Aye.
Ms. Hamlet?
Aye.
Dr. Levine? Aye. Mr. Miniger?
Aye.
President Vartan?
Aye. Okay, thank you. That is approved. And now on to number two, Councilmember Miniger.
Thank you, Council President. This is number 10155, and this resolution authorizes the awarding of a two-year contract for 2023 and 2024 for on-call HVAC maintenance and repairs to Industrial Cooling Corporation, a longtime HVAC vendor in Summit that is familiar with systems across many city properties. This contract, not to exceed $50,000 in a single year, allows for a possibility of a two-year extension at the end of this first term of the contract. And it is intended for small, routine projects and repairs. So once it gets beyond about 16,200, that will be done individually outside of this. I move to adopt this resolution.
I second.
Okay, any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And that motion carries. Okay, we're on to capital projects and community services, and we'll start off with Councilmember Libby.
Thank you, Council President. Resolution number 10170 serves to remove subdistricts 2 and 4 from the Broad Street West redevelopment project. After extensive feedback from the community, this council will not proceed with any plans to redevelop subdistricts 2 and 4. To clarify, Subdistrict 2 is the area between the library and the YMCA, and Subdistrict 4 is the area that encompasses the 7-Eleven, some other commercial uses, and City Hall. I move to adopt this resolution.
I second.
Okay, comments from members of council? No? Yes?
I just want to say that I'm very happy sub-districts 2 and 4 are off the table. This is something that was promised to the community, and I'm glad that my colleagues have made this a priority at one of our first initial meetings. There will obviously still be more that will need to be done to the redevelopment plans, but kudos to getting this done at one of our first meetings, so I think it's real progress.
Thank you.
I concur. I think this was a big move, a big step in the right direction for building trust. So thank you for making this a priority.
Sure. Council members? No? Members of the community, comments on this one?
Hi, Dory Gagnon, 27 Bedford Road. I want to thank you all for listening, especially to me and residents for Summit, for removing these sub-districts. I've asked many times, so thank you for doing that. In relation to Sub-District 4, I noticed that some renovations are planned, renovations and redevelopment are planned for Summit's current existing affordable housing, including the Vito Gallo building, the senior housing that's right next door. Can you please tell us what's going on with that, Council President Greg Bartan, since you're the liaison to the Affordable Housing Board, please?
Sure. So what you're talking about is the Housing Authority, the Summit Housing Authority, which is managed by a board of people that are appointed by the governor, the mayor, and then the rest of the members are appointed by council. So what's happening is there's a mechanism called RAD, which is basically where essentially the federal government a while ago decided there's really not money for this kind of, for rehabilitating and renovating these kinds of properties, HUD-created properties. And so basically several years ago, the Housing Authority went out for round one of their RAD basically financing, where they can go into the private market and get loans in order to keep up the property. That was several years ago. What they're doing right now is the Housing Authority Board has a RFP out for RAD 2. And what would be involved in that is some form of rehabilitation or renovation of all three of the properties. There's Vito Gallo there's Weaver Street, and then there's Glenwood Place. And I think I pointed the opposite way. I don't have an update on where the Housing Authority Board is on that process, but we can direct you to the Housing Authority Board's website, where the Executive Director, Keith Kennard, his email is there, and he would be a good person to answer that question. And if you want to copy me, please feel free to do that.
That would be great, because I specifically asked those questions when we were at the Affordable Housing meeting here. If those, renovating those, I was curious if we renovated those, if that would go towards our agreement. I know through you, Council President, Councilwoman Levine also asked the similar question. So when I came across all that information, I was curious, and now that we're removing these sub-districts, which I'm very happy for, I didn't know if removing that had any issue with the Vito Gallo building, but I guess not, because that's a different issue.
Yeah,
okay.
It's really functionally a separate thing, and that property was never included in the redevelopment plan to begin with. So it's really a
So I think people would really like to know if those other affordable housing areas are being renovated or are going to be doing work, because that was a hot topic. So if you could update the community, since you're the liaison to the affordable housing, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Council President, council members, from the YouTube videos, I've learned to come up here and speak in the mic closely.
What's your name, sir?
Jamel Boyer, 204 Morris Avenue. Just a little bit about myself. I am a longtime resident in Summit. I grew up on Dennis Place. I'm a Washington Owl. I went to Summit High School, played on a couple of championship football teams. I see Gil here. So. I went to Rutgers University. I got my degree in criminal justice. Went to St. Peter's, got my MBA and my accounting degree. And I came back and I married Shantae Mickens, who I've known since 5th grade. Now, I say all of this not to be grandiose, right? But I say it because I love this town. And if it wasn't for this town, I don't think any of that would have came true. So the reason for me to be up here is about affordable housing. As someone who grew up on Dennis Place, I'd like to know what the plans are for the individuals that you choose to move in these houses, right? I think as indigenous Black Americans, I don't want to be just the example. I'd like to be the standard. And diversity is an American thing. I mean, if we look in here, this is what makes America great. There's no other country like this country. So I'd like to know what the plans are. Is there a path forward to get certain people in these homes, in these affordable homes? And I do not at all wish to keep any other people out at all, but I just would like to know what the plans are, and if you are taking any advice from the city about who would live in these homes, and also if there's going to be a certain duration of time that people are allowed to stay in the homes. I know that affordable housing used to be, for a time, something that you would move to get on your feet, right? Which is the idea of welfare. And I'm not ashamed to say it. I moved here from Newark, New Jersey, Chancellor Avenue and Sly Street. I'm also a former narcotics detective, and I just wanted to say to the chief, this town is a very safe town. Because I've worked in Newark and Irvington and Trenton doing undercover operations, and you all should be happy where you're living at. But yeah, so I'll leave it there, and if you can describe your plans for the future low-income housing and individuals that will be occupying these spaces, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So I guess in briefly responding, I'll direct you to the city's affordable housing website, which has significantly more information on it now than it did a little while ago. The other thing is that I just remembered is we have the city's affordable housing committee is meeting on Monday, the 13th, which is next Monday, and that's at 6 p.m. And the link, it's a Zoom meeting, the link is on the city website, and that's another good opportunity to hear about basically the progress that's been made on the affordable housing front in 2022, and a good place for general discussion about affordable housing. But also, if you want to send me a follow-up email, we can set up a time to talk specifically about affordable housing, and I can connect you with our administrative agent as well. But we're focused on, for the purposes of this discussion, the exclusion of subdistricts 2 and 4 for Broad Street West redevelopment plan. So if there's comments on that, we'll limit it to that for right now. Okay, I think we have no more for that one. All right, so I think we're ready for a vote. I think this is a good one to do a roll call vote, so can we do that, Madam Clerk?
Sure. Ms. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Fox?
Aye.
Ms. Hairston?
Aye.
Ms. Hamlet?
Aye.
Dr. Levine?
Aye.
Mr. Miniger?
Aye.
President Vartan?
Aye. All right, that motion passes. We're moving on to capital projects number 2. Councilmember Levine.
Thank you, Council President. Resolution number 10044 serves to renew our contract with Topology for a 6-month period of time. This would allow them to continue to act as our planner as it pertains to the Broad Street West redevelopment project. The cost of this work would be reimbursed by the escrow account in accordance with the funding agreement between the city and the developer. In other words, the developer will continue to pay Topology, not the City of Summit. The contract amount is not to exceed $65,000. In a moment, I'm going to move to adopt this resolution, but first, I would like to take a moment to explain my point of view on redevelopment in Summit. Summit is special. There is no other municipality quite like ours, which means that there are no comps, simply no comps when it comes to redevelopment of this piece of land. Whatever ends up gracing that area must reflect Summit's historic character and unique charm. Given this opportunity to build our future, we must thoughtfully and carefully continue this process, supporting responsible redevelopment that is in keeping both with our community's values and the character of our downtown. As the new chair of the Capital Projects and Community Services Committee, I will help shape the many resolutions and ordinances pertaining to Broad Street West that come out of my committee, and as such, I will help frame the discussions you hear from this dais. I want to assure you that I am up to that challenge. I will use my current seat at this table to question, to advocate, to take a critical eye, and to keep our community's best interests at the forefront of my mind. And make no mistake, if I see something that I don't think is in our best interest, I will say so. We will hold our planner, our developers, and ourselves accountable every step of the way with eyes on the end goal, a project that enhances our community and one that we all can be proud of. I'm almost ready to move to adopt this resolution. Once I do, I would please like to ask Council President that before we discuss this matter as a council, that we give Topology's principal planner, Phil Abramson, a chance to address the room. Yes?
Sure, let's take the motion and then we'll...
Okay, I move to adopt this resolution.
I second.
Okay, we'll start off. Phil, would you please? Yeah.
Here we go. It's good to see everybody tonight. Thank you for having me and for the opportunity to be here to address you, Madam Mayor, Council President Mike Rogers. So my name is Phil Abramson. I'm the founder and CEO of Topology, the city's redevelopment firm. I just want to start out by saying and letting the community know that my primary objective tonight is, and I see this as beginning the process of rebuilding trust. Trust in my firm, trust in Topology, trust in the planning process for Broad Street West. To lay that groundwork, I want to briefly reflect on some of the decisions and some of the mistakes that got us here. I also want to share how I believe this process will unfold much differently moving ahead. First, I have not appeared in quite some time in this room. I always remembered this desk being much higher. I don't know why. So I thought I'd share a little bit about myself for those who don't know me. I was a resident of Summit for many years. I now live in Mountainside, right next door. I'm still in Summit almost every day. I patronize your stores. I go to your restaurants. My kids and my family go to your great institutions here. I've been involved in some aspects of planning in this city since 2016, starting with the city's master plan reexamination. The third thing is, I do believe in Broad Street West. I believe that we can do better than the parking lots that are out there right now. I also believe that for any redevelopment to be successful in this area, it must be done thoughtfully. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to tell you in a couple minutes. So, I want to talk a little bit about how I think we got here. I assumed management of this project last summer, and since then I've had the opportunity to debrief with all the elected officials and several members of the community. I've reviewed and reread much of the media coverage on this project, and I'd like to share some things that I've learned. To start out with, number one, the tail cannot wag the dog. In other words, it is critical that we as a community come to some consensus on why we're doing this and what we hope to accomplish. In retrospect, municipal finances became the driving force behind this project. I think these financial concerns were heightened during the economic uncertainty created by the COVID-19 pandemic. Standing here today, I believe that I have a much better understanding of local priorities. First, the existing redevelopment plan reflects the most development the city really wants to see. It is not a starting point for renegotiation. We will solve for the quality of design, not for maximizing financial returns. Other priorities include adequate provision of on-site parking, replacement of the public parking, maximization of affordable housing set aside, and of course, beautiful architecture. I believe that together we can accomplish all of these things. As I've assumed leadership of this project, my main priority was to reestablish broken lines of communication. After the pause that you all decided last May, I began working with Carlos Rodriguez, the planner retained by residents for Summit. I monitored the progress of Carlos and RFS as they finalized and ultimately presented a new plan at the Elks Lodge in November, as referenced by Council President. This plan was well received, and I was very relieved. As this process unfolds, I intend to maintain open lines of communication and seek feedback from the entire Summit community. This can and should include RFS and other stakeholder groups. My overarching goal is to help this entire city, the entire community, identify a feasible plan that reflects local priorities. And again, I believe that together we can accomplish all of this. I recognize that this process needs to be based on mutual trust and transparency. This is more than buildings, parking, and plazas. This is about reconciliation. Please know that I will be guided accordingly. I understand that we cannot go backward. I'm committed to seeing this through on the city's behalf and in partnership with the council, administration, advisory boards, and the entire community. I will be personally involved in all day-to-day management. And I guess I want you also to know that this is personal for me. Summit is extraordinary not just for what it is, but for what it means to all of us. For me, this is where my wife and I lived when we were married. Summit's where both of my daughters were born. Summit's where I began Topology, my company. So please know that I intend to treat this place with the respect and care that it deserves. So thank you for your time this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Phil. I will turn it over to council members.
I guess I'll go first.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Council President. It's more of a statement than a question. Is that all right?
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, certainly.
I actually had a speech in here based on how I was going to vote tonight, but I'm just going to look at you in the eyes and this room and say, you know, a couple months ago, I would have been a hard no, right? And I think it was very disappointing over the last year with the rocky road that we went through. But I'm going to say that in the last couple meetings, I feel like you have come to the table and earnestly listened, and I really believe that you have stopped and paused and realized that the people who run this town are the residents. We're here just as shepherds to get us through this. So I'm glad to see that it's going to be smaller. I would like to see 2/3 smaller. I'm glad to see that it's going to be parked. I'm glad to see that it will be shorter. If I had my druthers, it would be 3.5 floors. But what's the most important, whatever those details are, is that it's going to reflect the character, the charm of the town. It's going to match its historical value. And the residents who, for almost an entire year, asked for us to listen, I think that's going to be reflective in the plan that you came forth with. So I just want to let you know that I'm much more comfortable where we're at tonight, and I thank you for being here tonight, because I know it's not easy, putting it in reverse, but you're very humble, and I think that the crowd should know that. And the only thing I do want to say, and I'll stop on this, is that with the affordable housing through you, Council President, it was interesting. Someone had said to me, this is, Broad Street West came up, and they said, oh, that affordable housing building. And just to qualify, Broad Street West is a market rate building with affordable housing in it. And we as a community obviously are prioritizing that. And so I just wanted to recognize with the Housing Authority, there are 3 very distinct communities that are affordable. As Council President said, Weaver, Glenwood, and Chestnut. And there are this is public, I mean, there are developers who have looked at those buildings. They're going to redevelop them, and potentially we could end up with more affordable housing in our community. So what happens with this building, I think we're doing our fiduciary responsibility with an eye on affordable housing, doing it right for the community, but also realizing there are projects in this town happening where affordable housing is going to expand, because this community always has its eye on making sure people have homes and housing that they need. So I just wanted to make sure that that was,
Thank you.
my opinion.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Where do we want to go next?
Through you, Council President, and Phil, I don't mean to dismiss you because I absolutely appreciate your comments, but mine are directed to the gentleman who stood up, Jamel Boyer, who I think is going to have his eye on this project as well, and reflective of the comments that Councilwoman Allen said, that someone who grew up in Summit, you know this, and so does he, that quality comes first, and that our affordable housing commitment in Summit has stood by that. And so I appreciate your coming back to us in a way that reflects that, but it is to also assure Mr. Boyer to keep his eye as close on this to see that we come through in the way in which he recalls and he grew up. So thank you.
I appreciate it too. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor?
Thank you, Phil, for all your comments tonight, and for working with this community. It's a great community, but it's a very smart, well-informed group of people who care deeply about our town and are not interested in taking a back seat. So not a lot of communities are like this, and I know you kind of were first a little bit surprised about that back in 2016 with the master plan. But we're fortunate, and thank goodness. It's I said it a month ago that we work together, we learn from each other, we compromise, and we'll get a better project. So thank you, and I look forward to working with you for the rest of the year.
Thank you.
Council President?
Yes. Andy?
Oh, so Phil, I do have a speech written, and I'm going to say it as if it's ad lib right to your face. So you did a ton of work when we met with you recently. It was evident that you did a ton of work on our behalf, which was really crucial to this project being able to go forward. You've already talked about it. We've already heard really what you've done, which is you, along with Administrator Rogers, you facilitated valuable open dialogue beyond what you had to do. And as a planner, you worked through what was realistic in this new design that we saw, or the alternate proposal design, what was functionally not possible, and you did it in a way that makes me really optimistic that this can be, in its new form, something that will really incorporate everything that we heard and learned in 2022. So we listened, we conveyed the importance of what we heard, and you absolutely internalized those things, which was huge. So you demonstrated that really clearly, and having witnessed that, I think that there's no stronger testament to our commitment to incorporating what we heard loud and clear than to vote for the renewal of this contract. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you. Roger?
Phil, I just wanted to say, as someone who's been fortunate to work closely with you, that one of the things that I've seen in the way you work is the way you listen and you try to come up with practical solutions. And, starting from the time when we realized that this was a project we had to put the brakes on, that you were the first person to hear that and sort of figure out what we had to do. And I so much appreciated that. And now sort of looking at how we come back and do this, taking into account the concerns of the community. And I think you've been there to hear those concerns, and I'm confident that you'll be able to implement those comments and concerns and come up with something, help us come up with something that we can all be proud of. So I'm very pleased to vote in favor of your reappointment.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Do it?
I have to agree with Andy. have to follow my notes here. But Phil, thank you for coming tonight. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you yesterday. I think it was yesterday. The days are starting to run together. When I was asked about the extension of this contract, I was torn for a few reasons. Obviously, the initial project was flawed, and that was clearly based on an employee that we just missed the mark, right? The city's trusting you to get the details right? The damage caused by the misinformation has taken a toll on a lot of residents, and I just want to express that I certainly appreciate you coming here and standing here. It means a lot, and I know it means a lot to the residents. With all of that being said, Mr. Abramson, I hope Summit has shown you that public engagement meetings and the details involved in them from the start are significantly important. The devil is in the details. Thank you again for your time yesterday. I really was curious on how you have felt the last few months have been going. And I also, just so the public knows, I've had one meeting with Mr. Abramson and one other council member, or two perhaps. I am much more comfortable doing a 6-month contract than a 12-month contract, just so that we can stay on task. So I appreciate Council President Vartan doing that. And I have had so many conversations with our city administrator and council member Vartan assuring we are moving in the right direction, and I feel that we are, and we are making progress. Furthermore, the only other thing I would like to say is there are many other capable planners out there, believe it or not. I think Mr. Rogers could probably attest to that. So I will be personally making sure we are sticking to the timelines and that Summit residents are put ahead of the developers' interests. I will continue to advocate for accountability. I do believe we are making progress and appreciate you working with Carlos, the residents for Summit, and I give our city administrator a lot of credit for making all of this happen, and we are making a lot of progress, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Well, thank you. I'll add some final comments. I want to thank my colleagues for sharing their thoughts. I want to thank you, Phil, for speaking and for being here. The time spent in the fall and winter months has allowed council and the community at large to take the time that was necessary to think carefully about what is important. And those are to listen, to keep our goals front and center, and that communication about this is obviously critical. In some ways, this vote is a continuation of work that you and Michael have initiated, and we appreciate that. In other ways, it represents a fresh start and a sort of kickoff to the public-facing final phases of this project. Either we can find something that works for this community, or we won't. As I spoke about in our reorganization meeting, we will bring this process to a conclusion this year. And I believe you are the right person and the right planning firm to see us through the rest of this. So I will also be voting in support of that. This time, having heard from all of our council members, I'll open it up to comments from the public, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Don, come on up.
Don Nelson, 20 Plain Street. I really have a very simple question. Where was this caring and concern for Summit 18 to 12 months ago? That's all I'm going to ask.
Thank you for your comment. Eric.
So Eric Kerzlaski, 169 Broad Street. I will follow in line of just very simple questions. Would be curious if there's any consideration given for Carlos Rodriguez running point on this going forward, given all of the great work that he did over the course of 2022. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean Feeney, 112 Portland Road. I just want to remind council that last spring, after Carlos did his presentation at the Residents for Summit Town Hall, Topology authored a memo, which still appears on the Summit website, called Correcting Public Misinformation, in which it went through a lot of Carlos's points, and themselves were misinformation, because they were not factually correct. So I would ask Aaron if he would take another look at that memo and consider whether or not that memo should still appear as part of the public record. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, other comments on this? Resolution number 2. I think because we've had a lot of discussion about this, we'll take this one as a roll call vote as well.
Council
Madam,
President?
yes, sorry.
I'm sorry. The misinformation document Mr. Feeney mentioned, is that something we would deliberate over or talk about?
I think we have to have a discussion with Michael and with Amy and with Phil on whether that's something we want to take off the city website. I think the policy, generally speaking, has been anything that the city's put out about Broad Street is publicly available there as long as it's not confidential and deliberative. So let's have a conversation about that offline, if that works. Okay, roll call vote, right? Madam Clerk, please.
Ms. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Fox?
Aye.
Ms. Hairston?
Aye.
Ms. Hamlet?
Aye.
Dr. Levine?
Aye.
Mr. Miniger?
Aye.
President Vartan?
Aye. Thank you very much. That resolution is adopted as well. Okay, moving on to capital projects and community services number 3. Councilwoman Levine.
Thank you, Council President. Resolution number 10128 authorizes the 2023 submission of our Tree City USA recertification application and annual accomplishments report. Tree City USA designation recognizes communities that have proven their commitment to an effective, ongoing community forestry program. There's no cost to the city for this designation, and Summit has been a proud recipient of Tree City USA for 27 years. The benefit of having this designation is the potential for preferential status when financial assistance when grant money are made available for trees or urban forestry programs. I move to adopt this resolution.
I second.
Okay, comments from members of council? Tree City USA. Comments from members of the public? Everybody loves trees.
We all love them.
Everybody loves trees. All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote on this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, we are going to continue to be a Tree City USA, hopefully, if approved. That'll be good.
Yes. Year 28 coming up.
Year 28 is on the way. Everybody, get ready. Get hyped. Okay, number 4, Councilmember Levine.
Thank you, Council President. Resolution number 10090 authorizes the submission of the Sustainable Jersey Grant application at the $20,000 level. One of the purposes of the Sustainable New Jersey program is to provide resources to municipalities to make progress on sustainability issues, and they have created a grant program called the Sustainable Jersey Small Grants Program. The City of Summit Environmental Commission is submitting 2 separate grant applications to the 2023 Sustainable Jersey Grants Program funded by the PSE&G Foundation. And this first resolution is to approve the first one in the amount of $20,000. At that level, the Environmental Commission is applying for a grant to support a City Hall microgrid project. The project involves the installation of a small solar array on the south-facing roof of City Hall, which will connect to battery storage at City Hall. The microgrid piece involves the ability to switch on and off the main power grid. So in the event of a storm or other incident where the building loses power, the city would be able to switch it off the grid and run at least some part of the building on the energy that's stored by the solar panels. I move to adopt this resolution.
I second.
Okay, comments from members of council? Nope.
I actually do. I have a
Oh,
couple.
yes, please. I always look to the left. I'm
okay.
really sorry. Yes.
So this is actually an interesting one for me, and I've probably been torturing Aaron for 2 days on whether or not solar panels can be installed on metal roofs, because I truly didn't know the answer. So I'm learning in the process, and that was actually one of my questions, Councilwoman Levine. You don't have to answer it now, but as I'm learning, the other interesting thing that I think is in this grant, and maybe you can speak to it a little bit more, Councilwoman Levine, but is the piece for Martins Brook Park. Is that in here? Or is it? Is that the second one?
I think
can you
it's
touch
at
on
the
that one?
$2,000 level.
Oh,
for the
perfect. Okay, so we
green.
can,
Yeah.
but I was happy to
I
see that
believe
that one's in there as well, so.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other comments on this one?
I'd like to.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Marge?
this is something that the Environmental Commission has been very interested in for a long time, and I was liaison for a number of years, and before that I was a member, before I got on council. So this has been something that's been talked about for a long time. It's a great way to, you know, we talk about hardening our infrastructure, and this is a really great way to do that. And the thing about it that makes so much sense is when the electricity is running, we are on the grid, and what happens is any power that we end up generating goes back into the grid and saves us money. And if we find ourselves without power, there is a switch. That's what makes it different than your traditional solar installation, that you can switch it to power the actual building that it's on. So I'm hoping we'll get this grant. I think it's a really great opportunity. And that's all I have to say.
Sure, thank you. Any other council member comments on this?
Oh, yes, Council President.
Yes, sir.
I guess just in general, check out sustainablejersey.com, the website. So it's a ton of grant opportunities, but also it provides an outline for cities, for municipalities, to pass ordinances and resolutions that help them reach environmental goals. It's a really amazing thing if you're into that, so do it.
Thank you. Comments from members of the community? Microgrid? Okay, seeing none, I think we're ready for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And that motion is approved as well. Number 5, Councilmember Levine.
Thank you, Council President. Resolution number 10148 authorizes the submission of the second Sustainable Jersey grant. This one is in the amount of $2,000, and this is for general green team operations around our municipality. Examples include guest speakers, Earth Day cleanup event, supplies for the tiny forest, among other things. And I move to adopt this resolution.
I second.
Okay, comments from members of council?
So this is the one,
Yes.
Greg, if I could. This is, if anybody's been to Martins Brook Park, I can never say it. It's down on, it's off of Butler, right? I'm trying to think.
Yep.
It's right off of Butler.
Butler.
I didn't really know what that park was until I started campaigning, but a lot of the residents were explaining to me that if you haven't been down there, all the signs are completely destroyed. There's probably 8 or 9 that I think the Boy Scouts did. So I certainly think that will be great if, for many reasons, but if it doesn't get approved, I still think we should address that for the residents down there. But I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other council member comments on this one? Comments from members of the public? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And that motion carries as well. Last one, Councilmember Levine.
Thank you, Council President. ID number 10134, as discussed in closed session, this resolution declares a vacancy in the Department of Community Services in the Division of Public Works in the Sanitation Unit. I move to adopt this resolution.
I second.
Okay, council member comments? Comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And that motion carries as well. Okay, we have one resolution out of Law and Labor, so I'll turn it over to Councilwoman Hairston.
Thank you, Council President. ID number 10181 to authorize execution of a settlement agreement for the Police Department. Per the discussion in our closed session and upon the advice of the city attorney, I am recommending this settlement agreement with the city employee as in the resolution.
Okay. Second?
Second?
Okay, comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? All right, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries as well. Okay, we're on to our consent agenda portion of the evening. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, any comments or questions from members of council about items that are in the consent agenda? No. Okay, comments from members of the public? All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, and the consent agenda is approved. We are on to the public comments section. At this point in the meeting, council welcomes comments from any member of the public about issues that are not topics on tonight's business agenda. If you have a prepared statement, please provide a copy to the city clerk or email it. All right, we're open for business. Don, come on up.
Again, Don Nelson, 20 Plain Street. Got some requests. I think it was the zoning board that just passed the ordinance or approval for a building construction down by me on Morris Avenue for an apartment building. It's in a new business zone. One of the things with the new business zone is I believe there's a 0 setback from the property line. I could be wrong, but it's pretty close to the property line. That creates a problem for neighboring residences. If you're all familiar with the promenade on Morris Avenue across the street from Bristol Myers, they're pretty close to the property line. Whenever their underground carbon monoxide fan kicks on, the neighborhood can hear it. So what I'm asking council to do is to review the neighborhood business zoning to see if some sort of setback could be established. I brought that up at the zoning board meeting, and they said this is the place to start it. So I'm asking if you could review that and see if there's some changes that can be made, because it would prevent a business from opening up and having 0 clearance from the lot line. And if you happen to live behind them, you got to deal with, you could have been there for 20 years, now a new building goes up, you got to deal with what the new building brings. So I'm asking you to look into that. Secondly, I'm a lucky participant in the traffic on River Road thanks to the new stoplight at Chatham Road and River Road. So I'm asking if there's any way we could look at the end of Plain Street where it intersects with River Road, if we could put a do not block the box zone so we can get out of the street. Luckily, most people are pretty nice and realize that you can't get out, they let you out. But I'm asking if we could look at that with the county, to maybe do that and put up some signs to don't block the box. Additionally, when you turn onto Plain Street from River Road, there's no parking for about 50, maybe 35 feet from the corner. A neighboring auto dealership employees park there all day. And what happens is when you can turn off of River Road onto Plain Street, it forces you into oncoming traffic that's coming down Plain Street. Doesn't happen very often, but it happens enough that it creates a problem. Sometimes Mack tool trucks park on the corner, and you got to swing way around. Or if you're coming down, you can't see around the truck that parks on the corner. Creates a problem. So I'm asking council if we could look into those issues to make our life on Plain Street a little bit easier. I know we're a buffer zone between commercial and residential, but people who have been on the street for 30 years shouldn't have to deal with the repercussions of new development. New development should deal with the people who live there. Make their life a little, keep their life the same. So those are 3 issues I'd like council to look into and see if some sort of resolution can come to head. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Those are all things we'll look into in the CAPS committee, and we'll have Aaron and the CAP committee look into that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dylan.
Thank you, Mr. Vartran, members of council, mayor. My name's Dylan Baker. I'm a resident at 72 Dale Drive in Summit, New Jersey. I'm also a leasee at 395 to 399 Springfield Avenue, 18 Maple Street, and 16 Maple Street. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the seasonal closure of Maple Street. I've been up in front of you before. Yeah, you've all heard my story. You've heard my pitch. The seasonal closure is great for this town, not only as a resident, but of course as a business owner. I see it as not only a benefit to living here, but a benefit to living adjacent to here. It brings people into the town. It lets people come and enjoy our community. It convinces people to move to our community, quite honestly. I'd like to see it return seasonally, permanently seasonally, from May through October, every year for the next, I'll say decade, the next 10 years, indefinitely, if it could be. And I just wanted you to hear my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
I think Dylan was looking over my shoulder the entire time. Basically said what I was going to say. Thank you, members of council, Mayor Radis, for all of your hard work. I think that I'd like to say that everyone's opinions are valid on this topic. As you mentioned earlier, there's a wide variety of opinions. I happen to be a proponent of the seasonal closure. I think, any variation of May through End of September is a good one. I mean, I know, speaking for last year's temperatures, September was a beautiful time where we all spent celebrating birthdays and all other kind of events at many of the businesses in the neighborhood. I think these businesses were vital during the pandemic, and I would argue they're even more so now as a community resource. I think President Borton's comment about properly designing the closure, the instruments in that closure, like removable bollards, et cetera, things like that, I think are critical. Instead of having those big giant orange things, which I know were used as an emergency sort of solution. Outdoor dining was the envy of anyone I knew in any of the towns neighboring, and I think it's a vast improvement towards the vitality of this entire town, and I hope it is here to stay. So,
Thank you. And I'm sorry,
I'm
can
sorry,
you
I
just provide your
apologize.
name
Yes.
and address as well?
Illyrian Phil Vhap, 17 Rotary Drive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening,
Hi.
Council. My name is Nishay Clark, 77 Druid Hill Road. I am also here to speak in favor of the seasonal closing of Maple Street. I think there's 2 points to really emphasize here. One, it's seasonal. No one's saying to shut it down all year long, but that May to October-ish timeframe, is really a great time to be able to get out and to enjoy businesses. I have owned a small business for over 20 years, and I worked from home for over 20 years, long before the pandemic put a lot of people at home. And I know I, for one, really looked forward to the opportunity to go out, get out of my house, dine al fresco, sometimes still with my laptop in front of me, but to be outside and to support local businesses that really helped to support us through the pandemic. I think that there's also a lot of other benefits. You can look up a lot of different news articles. I happen to be a market researcher, so that's just kind of how I do things. And there were a lot of benefits to many towns, and a lot of psychological benefits. There were the mental health benefits. There were the benefits of being able to be out and socialize in a world where we still have to think a little bit about COVID. The health and safety aspect of the outdoor dining actually really helps to enhance things here. And a lot of people also look for opportunities to dine outside, which means that we're drawing in more people to the community and keeping some of the people in the community dining here. So thank you very much, and I hope that we can keep May to October one of my favorite times of year in Summit. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Daniel Jackson, 28 Morris Avenue. I think regardless of what you say about the consensus, the city of Summit should not be picking business winners and losers by closing public streets during non-emergencies. And what would some of the businesses that are saying that it was so good, if let's say it was another street and they felt they were on the losing end, would they all of a sudden say, no, it's okay, come on, let's do it seasonally? I don't think so. The way I see it, the businesses exist, they're private entities, they compete for the benefit of everyone. Consumer picks the markets by making choices, but the roads exist for everybody, literally everybody. The poorest Summit resident should have full access to Maple Street and other roads just as much as the wealthy should. And I think SDI got the planner. The planner comes in, and he talks about some of these things. Sometimes creative placemaking. Nobody can really wrap their hands around it. But he says, all businesses are going to be helped. And some businesses do like it, especially the ones who are going to be the winners. But it still makes it wrong. The fact that it's 4 months and not 12 months doesn't make something which is wrong transformed into something which is right. Okay, for 4 months, we're going to jeopardize emergency vehicle response time. Therefore, it's right because it's not 12 months. Many people talked about navigational frustration. Every day, 24/7, they have to recompute how they're going to go from point A to point B every single day, but it's only for 4 months, not for 12. That makes it right. I don't see the logic of that. How about the businesses who have told you they're going to lose? We're losing business. We're going to move out. We're going to lose if you do this again. Our deliveries are a mess because we have to go to the corner. There are public safety issues. Now, all of a sudden, because it's 4 months and not 12, it's therefore right. I don't agree with that. And, I think Maple Street should be open 12 months a year, excepting for emergencies. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a little taller, so
Thank you.
hopefully the mic picks me up a little bit. So my name's Sam Coburn. I live at 235 Blackburn Road in Summit, New Jersey. Before that, 724 Springfield Avenue in Summit, New Jersey. I am a 30-year resident, almost a 30-year resident of Summit, but I still refer to myself as an import because my wife, who's usually more vocal in these circumstances, is more like a 50-year resident. The reason I'm making the point is when you start thinking about something like shutting down Maple Street for part of the year, you have to think about a city cannot stay static or stagnant or whatever term you want to use in terms of the way it operates for a 50-year period. And while closing Maple Street came out of a horrible circumstance for all of us, I think it opened our eyes to a way to improve the downtown district. And I think that the temporary closure really serves both purposes for those people who are strongly opposed to it. And what I would argue, there's a lot of towns that actually create walkways through their cities permanently where cars will never be able to travel that street again. And I recognize we've got limitations because some things are county roads and some things are city roads. But when we came out of our houses after a year of being locked in due to COVID-19, it was reminiscent, for those of us who have been lucky to travel, it was reminiscent of being in a cafe in Europe where you've got people boisterously laughing. I remember Dylan opened a pop-up bar next to Summit House, and it was a way to be able to get together, and actually I ran into the mayor as we were waiting for a place to eat. And so it basically created this social atmosphere, and I guess why I'm here supporting it is there's a lot of great things that happen in our businesses downtown, and when you bring it out onto the sidewalk, whether it's a street fair where it's closed for a day, or whether it's closing Maple Street for 4 months for the purpose mostly for dining, it takes all the great things that are going on in Summit's businesses and it brings them out on the street and it brings it out for show. And it doesn't just benefit the residents of Summit. It benefits our neighboring towns. They come here and that benefits our businesses and benefits our downtown association and works its way back to all of us as residents anyway. So I'm not going to be any more long-winded than that, but I've been here a long time. I usually don't like change. This is an example of one that I think is actually a huge benefit for the town. I would strongly consider a permanent view of a temporary closure of Maple Street. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is John Nicholas, and my wife and I, she can't be here tonight, but we live at 95 Fernwood Road. We've been in Summit now over 25 years, and I just wanted to speak in support, and I'll keep it short because a lot of my points have already been made regarding keeping Maple Avenue open. I was very surprised to hear comments about winners and losers. As a resident, we walk all the time downtown. We drive downtown. Our neighbors can attest, they see us walking all the time. We patronize the stores. We patronize the restaurants. It makes it more pedestrian friendly. I would say I've explored more stores in the area just walking down, being able to be leisurely about it. It's easier to cross the streets from a safety standpoint on Springfield Avenue. And I just think during the nice weather, which does run for 4 months, give or take, it makes a lot of sense to do it. It brings a lot of vitality, a lot of sense of community. And it's one of the reasons we really love Summit. So I'll keep it short, but we're all in for the 4 months and think it's a great idea. And I think everyone's a winner. I'm surprised to hear people feel otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Matt Delaney, 76 Prospect Hill Ave. Thank you, council members. I grew up in Summit and was lucky to move back to the town 3 years ago. I am a big proponent of the seasonal closure from May to October. One of the things, I have 2 little kids. I'd say a lot of the restaurants have been very generous about having strollers, et cetera, letting us dine outside. It's just a lot easier with little children to do so than perhaps inside. And the kids really love it during the summer months, and I think it's a big highlight of bringing them into town. Second thing I'll say is I work downtown. I work at an investment firm downtown. One of the reasons we moved to downtown Summit from 51 JFK is to get the benefits of the town. We're cooped up 8-9 hours a day in the office, getting outside. I think one of my fellow residents mentioned a psychological benefit. I don't know if that's empirically true or not, but it certainly feels better. But I will say it's also great for business. We entertain a lot. We bring out clients a lot. And having that outdoor dining is very big for business. And then I'd say these restaurants are just a big selling point of the town in general. And I'd love to see, certainly they went through a tough time during COVID, and keeping them viable and letting them earn a little more over these 4 months, I think is a great thing for the town. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Peter Kelly. I live 19 Rotary Lane, and I've also lived in Summit 30 years. I am for the temporary closure from May to October, or whatever works, using common sense. I think coming out of the awful COVID, a couple of the good things, it's brought a lot of us together, and bringing us together is outdoor dining. I think it's opened up New Jersey, the U.S., and all of us. New Jersey is how wonderful outdoor dining is. Everyone's brought up a lot of the similar points. When you go away, it's like, oh, this is wonderful. Here's outdoor dining. Why don't we have it in Summit? And now we do. So I don't see going backwards. I think people resist change. Not all change is bad. So I think we're all winners. So I would hope you guys take it into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Council President, Jim Checky. I'm no longer a resident of Summit, but I used to live on 160 Summit Avenue. But I spent so much time in your businesses and restaurants that I thought that I could give you the perspective and echo some of the comments of your citizens. I think the benefit of the seasonal closure really enhances the entire community of Summit. My wife and my son James, we spend so much time here. We travel from Essex Fells, where nothing ever changes. We love Essex Fells, but nothing has ever changed. We've been there 20 plus years. We're sort of residents, not quite yet, but I wholeheartedly think it really enhances the appeal of your entire downtown. And to the concept of winners and losers, this council, the mayor, and all of you know that whenever you improve something, there's always some impact somewhere else. But I think the impact of a seasonal closure on Maple Street is greatly outweighed by the benefits this community writ large experiences from the beauty of outdoor dining that is offered by these restaurants. I just want to make one final point. I think the empirical studies are that getting outside, dining outside, is healthy. People enjoy it. It was a vast benefit during COVID for all of us. I believe not just for the citizens, but for the surrounding communities that came here to enjoy the great outdoors and the great businesses that you have. So I support seasonal closure for former residents who come here to dine. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome back.
Hi, Council. Thank you for your time. My name is Cameron Evans, 30 Webster Avenue.
again, just kind of echoing the points, I'm in support of temporary closure of Maple Street. I just think it's for the greater good of the community, and just anecdotally from what I know from friends and family living in the area, it attracts a lot of people to the neighborhood, and so I think it's a great benefit to the community. I personally love it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Good evening. Hi, good evening. My name is Angela Sweeney. I currently live in Berkeley Heights, although I was a longtime resident of Summit, and I basically sleep in Berkeley Heights and make a left. So I'm really here more so on behalf of Fiorino and the other restaurants, and I'm totally and absolutely for the closure, whether it be from May to May would be fabulous, but from May to October, whatever's permitted. And I say that because during COVID, which was a horrible, awful time for people, they went through a great deal of trouble to accommodate everyone and to repaint, from installing a new air filter system in their restaurant to accommodating outside, from getting lovely tables and chairs, accommodating people, music, just a friendly atmosphere that they provide from Finn and the other stores that are on Maple Street as well. And I realize there is a lot of congestion and traffic in Summit, and getting to the train could be annoying, but we have several areas from Bank Street, Summit Avenue, Broad Street, Morris Avenue to the left of by the Y and the post office, where people can still access the train. And I think whether there's a closure or not, this is a bustling, awesome, fabulous town. And to not have this and have the beautiful lights at nighttime, and the members of the Elks, like the Elks has tripled in membership because of people really enjoying being outside. And I just think it's really important that, not only because of what we all went through with COVID, which was frightening, some people are still going through that. It hasn't completely ended for a lot of people. And quite honestly, I have some friends that can't dine inside. They have a husband who's still sick. They have to be outside. You know, they're happy that they renovated their homes with their sun porches, because they can't eat inside with friends. And it's important, I think, honestly, to have this option for people. It's really so wonderful. So I'm totally and completely for it, and don't want to see it closed. So, and I love the Petici family too. So, thanks.
Thank you. And welcome back to Summit as well, to you.
Hi everyone. Hi everyone. My name is Adam Selig. I live at 133 Whitridge. 15-year resident of Summit. It's 15 or more. I'm also a board member of an organization called the New Jersey Bike Walk Coalition, and as a member of that organization, we have abundant evidence that our car culture and closing down streets benefits cities, even small cities like the city of Summit. And some of the people have said, you know, talking about being out in the environment and whatnot, it's fact. It's not just the feeling of the people in this room, but we are a car culture. Nobody's happier than I am when I get in front of Manhattan Bagel, so I get a quick coffee and I get back into my car and I drive away. But the outdoor dining in the months, I forgot to say, I'm a proponent of closing the street, because closing streets benefit communities and they increase the quality of life for everybody in that community. So the two reasons have been mentioned. One reason is people need fresh air, people need to smell the trees, people need to walk, people need to be forced to walk more than they do, and even these tiny streets closures make them walk a little bit more than they used to. But they also need to interact with other people, and I've been walking through town as many of these other people have, and run into neighbors and friends who are eating dinner, and you stop and you talk to them. So things like the car show, things like the open dining here outside, they all foster community, and those two reasons make the overall community better for everybody by having the street closure. So that's why I support it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mark Granger. My wife Amanda and I live at 8 Pembroke Road. I'm English. I've lived in the States for 26 years. I've lived in Summit for 13 years, but I retain proudly my European roots, and I have to say there are many, many towns and cities across Europe where street cafe culture is deeply embedded, where they would be raising an eyebrow that we're even having this debate of outdoor dining versus cars. Even in England, where May and October are not nearly as nice as they are here. My elderly father came over from England to visit me this summer in June. Friday afternoon, we had a wonderful lunch in Maple Street at Fiorino's. It was a beautiful 70-degree day, 75-degree day. It's probably the last time my father's going to come over to the US. His health is not what it used to be. And he talks about it all the time. Every time I talk to him, it feels like he talks to me about the memory of that lunch. And that's what, to me, I agree with all of the arguments that have been made for the closure, May to October. But for me personally, this is about creating memories. Memories of these wonderful outdoor meals with my father, with my daughter, talking about what university she was going to go to, with our son, celebrating his graduation from Summit Middle School. And this is about creating memories for generations to come. And I couldn't be more supportive of closing Maple Street for the next decade. Why not? From May to October. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mary Cordian. I live at 30 Elm Street, apartment F. And the reason why we moved from New Providence to Summit was to be downtown and to enjoy the walkability of being downtown. So having the closure of the streets is wonderful. My husband and I are here tonight, and we are in full support of closing the Maple Street. And having the musicians and the lights, it just makes it wonderful. And I also think about some of the other discussions about inevitably bringing more people to town. We also have the new condos where the old Infinity was. There's a lot of folks that really appreciate the walkability, and we are fortunate to live close enough to walk to the downtown. We moved from New Providence, so we fortunately saw some of our friends outdoor dining and heading up to the Elks Club during the summer months. So it's wonderful. So I really hope that we're able to keep it seasonably open.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Christopher Joralemon, Joralemon. I live at 8 West Lane with my beautiful wife and 2 sometimes bratty children who are not in attendance. A few words about Maple Street. Shutting down that road costs me 2 to 3 minutes every time I take a trip across town. Dropping my daughter off at school, running errands, or rushing to catch a train. Extra time every trip, every day. And how do I feel about all that time it's cost me? It is worth every second. Here's why. As we finally, hopefully, emerge from this global pandemic, the temporary closure of Maple Street really was this small grace amidst so much suffering. I cannot tell you how much joy your decision brought to so many people. It freed us from quarantine. It allowed us to come together once again and raise our glasses and break bread as a community. And so on behalf of so many of our neighbors, I thank you for that decision. And it is in that spirit, the spirit of this small but unmistakable grace, that I stand before you tonight in support of the permanent seasonal closure of Maple Street for outdoor dining. The longer, the better. It is worth 2 minutes out of our days. It is worth so much more than that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Bowen, 45 Waldron, and I have a question. This will all be quick, but I have a question and then 4 quick comments. The
Sure.
question is, I think sometimes we're conflating affordable housing and low-income housing into the affordable housing bucket. Because as I understand it, Broad Street West, as it was conceived before, had affordable housing units. And the rent profile in an affordable housing unit, I believe, was $3,400 or something. It was high. But my point is, it's not low income. Now, I'm for both. I think we should have more low-income housing and more affordable housing. But I also I want us to be aware that sometimes we're conflating the two. And I think sometimes people are hearing affordable housing, or they're hearing affordable housing and they're thinking that that's low-income housing, and they're not the same.
I think it's a mix, but I'm not 100% sure, but we'll look into it.
I thought it was affordable.
So,
But I can check, but I just wanted, that was just a
Sure.
comment.
I'm sorry, so did you ask the question?
Yeah, do you
Okay,
think,
yeah,
like,
so there's the
for
capital-
example, the person who
Yeah.
is a potential tenant on Weaver Street is probably not a potential tenant at Broad Street West. That's my only point.
Yeah, so under the, and this is all info on the city's affordable housing website, there's the affordable housing capital A as defined by the state. And then within that, there's different levels.
Right, that's my only point.
Yes, exactly. So yes, there were, included in the previous design of Broad Street was different levels of it was moderate income housing, as opposed to low income housing, which is located other places, right?
That's
Yeah, so
my
it's-
only point.
I think
That's
it's
my
a
only-
mix.
And it
There's
was
a
a mix,
statutory mix
yeah,
that's
so-
required.
I don't remember
So
seeing
we'll,
a
yeah, we'll
low
keep, yeah, we'll,
income unit, but maybe that was an old iteration too.
And
It's
it's moot
possible
anyway,
change.
because it's all gonna be a different project.
But
right,
it's-
it's
right,
gonna be,
I'm just making
yeah,
that
as
point.
as we move forward with it though, yeah, we will,
Yeah.
yes. I'm sorry, I'll let you get to the rest of the
Okay,
points.
and then I have quick comments about closing Maple Street. I just want us to be aware, I'm just a realist, we're willfully overlooking the fact that Beechwood Road is a far better choice. It's not a through street, but there aren't 4 expensive restaurants on Beechwood Road. And so I think we need to think about the fact that what we're doing in effect is we're giving a benefit to 4 or 5 very expensive restaurants. Oh, wait, I forgot, I was going to say something at the beginning, which was welcome to all these people who have been here for 25 years. That's nice. I hope you find your way around. I've been here for 60. But I think we're willfully overlooking the fact that we're giving a monetary benefit that we're calling a community benefit. But let's face it, many members of our community have been to Fiorino's maybe once because they can't afford any better. They haven't been to Roots at all because they can't afford it at all. So let's not overlook that fact. Let's not overlook the fact that we are benefiting those of us who are lucky enough to consider going to Roots or Finn or Fiorino's. And so let's think about the community benefit we might have, other benefits than to these 4 or 5 restaurants. You know, maybe we see Brownies selling cookies there. Maybe we do something else that benefits all of the members of our community. And I think, that having been said, I'm sort of for this, but I'm not for May to October. I think, you know, a week before school's out until a week before school's in. And I'm saying that only for safety. You know, 2 or 3 minutes is nothing unless you're waiting for an ambulance, right? 2 or 3 minutes is nothing. Well, what about the little kid who was involved in a pedestrian accident a block away last week? Do we want, what 2 and 3 minutes are important? So that's my comment. I'm broadly for it when nobody's here in the summer. But let's not pretend that we're not benefiting expensive and very nice and very lovely and wonderful restaurants. But it's not benefiting every member of our community the way it could if we thought about it in a grander way, or a more collaborative way, or a more community way. And that's my comment.
Thank you.
Member of Council, thank you very much. I'm Didier Perron. I live at 158 Hillcrest Avenue in Summit for the past 53 years, so I think I beat a lot of people here. Yeah, I think what the Council has heard about Maple tonight is a misrepresentation of the community. Today I received an email from Fiorino, and I suspect a lot of people you heard here tonight were friends or proponents of closing Maple. And so I just want to alert you that what you've heard today is a misrepresentation of the community. The people missing here are the housewives, the women driving their kids to school, middle school, high school, wherever, who have to cross Summit every day. I'm retired, I can choose my time, but I never go in 10 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And even at night, it's at 7 o'clock, it's awful. Anyway, so the women that drive their kids to school are terribly inconvenienced about the closing of Maple. So beware that what you've heard tonight is not what the citizens want. What I would propose, I'm French. I love sitting outside and dining outside. I've done that all my childhood. But what I would propose is that you close Maple only when the schools are not functioning, which would be June, July. Well, I don't know, but June. The school, I think, stops around mid-June. So mid-June to August. And that's it for tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi.
Good evening. Beverly Brown, 221 Kent Place Boulevard. I really didn't plan to speak tonight, but hearing the overwhelming support of the closure from May to October of Maple Street, I applaud the well-coordinated effort to bring this topic forward at the same time. I enjoyed dining out at Fiorino's, Finn. You know I'm lobster sliders and tuna tartare. But I do have to kind of give pause to the fact that there are a small number of merchants, restaurants specifically, who will vastly benefit from expanding their table space onto our city street. And this will negatively impact, I'm sure, businesses on Maple Street who have trouble unloading their trucks, who have trouble having their patrons, pull up and drop off. We already have one empty storefront there. Hopefully it'll be filled quickly when Wonder Dog moved down to the Strand, former Strand area, and that's how long I've been here. I won't tell you how long because it's longer than 30 years, and I passed 30 a long time ago. But what I want council to kind of focus on is some of the comments that we heard about the benefit, and that would be the financial benefit. So will the restaurants who are benefiting by the increased table space, will they contribute to, say, other businesses on Maple Street who perhaps might see a decrease in their traffic flow, who might have trouble having patrons come in? Will there be a Maple Street cooperative where they could share their profits? There's dead silence there. So that's just something I'd like people to consider. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, council members. My name is Thomas Sangiacomo. I reside at 145 Summit Avenue. I'm only a resident in Summit for 6 years. Prior to that, I lived in Short Hills with my family for almost 30 years. I have 6 generations in Essex County, so I blame my wife for making me move. So I enjoy the downtown area tremendously.
I think there is a tremendous economic vitality to the seasonality closure of Maple Street. Also, as the chief was talking about safety before, I'm all about that, and I think safety is a priority. While the street is closed, there's lots of visibility, especially at summertime. You know, things get a little frisky, and I think it does provide economic value to the retailers in the area. But it's great to be able to walk downtown from your residence and hear music playing, families. I mean, most of you probably have children. I mean, do they want to, in the summertime, be in a restaurant and closing four walls, or do they want to sit outside for an hour or so, maybe move around a little bit, you know, instead of crawling under tables and whatnot? Also, Maple Street does not provide seating on the sidewalks. So if you did have a non-closure of the streets, there are no tables on the sidewalks to be able to enjoy a summertime evening of dinner. And even though we're at the coattail of COVID, it is still nice to be able to breathe a little bit and enjoy the environment. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
My name's LaRonda Gum. I live at 13 Hillview Terrace, formerly Mealy Place, and formerly Ashwood Avenue. So I've lived around the town a little while and have had different driving patterns. With regard to the outdoor seating and the closure of Maple Street, I don't know anybody who is not in favor of some sort of outdoor dining. My question is, how many months does it really make sense to close the entire street, and at what level of inconvenience and potential safety concerns do we impose on the tax-paying residents of the city of Summit? So I mentioned safety, as I think there have been 4 pedestrian accidents in the last couple weeks. And then everybody knows we had a fatality as well not too long ago. Anybody who knew Willie knows how much this town loved him, and there just wasn't a kinder man. I do think that a couple minutes here and there, as the other gentleman said, isn't necessarily a big deal, unless, of course, there's an emergent situation, your house is burning down, your child's waiting for the ambulance, and those things do need to be taken into consideration. Obviously, Maple's a main artery moving through town, and more cars will end up on less roads, creating more congestion, more impatient drivers, more distracted drivers, and potentially more issues. I think that it's slightly careless, honestly, to close the street beyond the school. I think you should mirror the school schedule so that the kids are safer. Parents can get back and forth, as the other gentleman said. You know, it's a lot of traffic moving around town with 2 or 3 children moving from school to school. So it's also my understanding that the owners of Fiorino in Summit are not actually Summit residents. And so their letter, I love Fiorino, it's my husband's favorite restaurant. I have a little issue with the way they propose it. I own a business, and I would love to double my floor space for free. Would love that. That'd be amazing. But it's inconvenient for everybody else to go to CVS, go to the bank, go to that, all the other things. The other people that don't live here, yeah, it's great. You want to go do your fun things, but to live in and day out might not be convenient. So the other thing is, yes, I like to eat outside, but not when it's too hot, not when it's too cold, not when it's too windy, not when it has rained recently or is going to rain. So if we do a closure, I really suggest mirroring the school schedule, keep our kids safe, and that we should not be putting the 4 businesses, primarily the high-end restaurants again, ahead of our residents' safety, specifically our kids. So thank you.
Thank you.
Don Nelson, 20 Plain Street. My question for council is there a benefit to the city of Summit financially or revenue-wise if these restaurants are allowed to double their space or sometimes, quadruple their space? Is there a fee structure reflecting that? That if you add more tables, they're going to pay more of a fee to the city to make it a revenue generator? Because I know last year we talked about how revenue in Summit's not that good. So this might be a way to at least get some of that revenue back into the coffers
Yes.
for Summit.
We're considering that, for sure.
At the risk that I missed that section in my, what was a beautiful graphic before. You'll all see it. You'll love it. Yes, part of what we're trying to figure out is, of course, the legal path, the safety aspect, putting in place a fee structure that makes sense, and then, of course, the
Timing.
beauty of it and the timing.
Perfect.
Those are the things that we're considering.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yes.
Another thing I'd like to point out is there are people who are saying the benefit for our businesses. We are very conscious of making sure that this space is also available. This past year, we had a few tables and chairs kind of near Lululemon, which were open to the public, and we want to enlarge that space, get more furniture in there, so people are free to, to grab a cup of coffee and sit there. And it's open to the public at any time, regardless of your ability to pay. You don't have to buy anything. You can just sit there with your newspaper if you want. So that's one thing. There are other businesses that have used this space. I believe Kidville's used it. One of the yoga studios has used it. So, and the restaurants have been very cooperative, and that has always been sort of an understanding, is that it's community space, and it's not just the 4 restaurants, and the businesses have all worked together in the past, and we expect them to continue to do so, to allow others to use the space and to benefit from the space. So I just wanted to address that.
Yeah, so let's keep getting the community comments, and then I imagine other council members might want to chat on that
Can I
too.
just comment real quick on,
Sure.
on Mr. Nelson? Just so you know, Don, the one other thing that we're looking at is parking is my committee, so we're also looking at how much revenue per meter we are losing and how to replace that as well.
Which will be incorporated
Right.
in our fee structure, yes.
Hi.
Hi.
Bonnie Morrison, 24 Rotary Drive. Overall, I do support a seasonal closure during school, when school's not in session due to the traffic and the safety issues. But one thing that has bothered me the last few years is that for the vast majority of the day, there's nothing going on a closed street. There's nobody sitting there. I would love to see it just be open evenings, weekends, when the weather's cooperative. We don't have any data on just how much usage the street is generating. So would there be any chance of having a study this year when it's closed to see just how much it is used? And at the same time, I want to piggyback on a comment by Councilwoman Hamlet several months ago about retractable bollards. Is that something we could look into? I know they're not cheap, but maybe there's some grant programs we could look into to finance that. Because then we'd have the flexibility to have it open, and closed whenever we want it without disrupting everybody all the time. So that was.
Thank you.
Hi, guys. Mike Gomes, 357 Springfield Avenue. I am not a resident of Springfield, although I get enough tickets to become a resident. I am an aspiring future resident of Springfield, and I have to tell you that.
Summit.
I'm sorry, it's a Summit. My apologies.
Springfield Ave, Summit.
So, yeah.
I got what happened.
Yeah, and I have to tell you that if it wasn't for the closure of the seasonal closure, I would never have encountered some of the small businesses in that area, and it resonates with me because we are a small business as well on 357 Springfield Avenue, Summit. In Summit, Signature Realty, and I have to say that I've made friends with a lot of the small businesses in that area, and some of those small businesses have told me already in the past that if it wasn't for that seasonal closure, they wouldn't even be in business till to this day. And I have to confirm that to be true because when COVID happened, initially our office location was going to be where the Christie's International office is there. And when COVID happened, we decided not to open our business in that, on that street, in that spot, because it is a small little area, and there isn't a lot of car traffic, there isn't a lot of foot traffic, and some of those businesses do get lost. And like I mentioned before, I go up and down Beechwood. I support all the businesses there from Zappia's to Boxwoods to Union Place, Sarah's. And if it wasn't for that closure, I wouldn't get my haircut at Kennedy's. I wouldn't go to the thrift store, which is my love story. I wouldn't know the owners of Fiorino's. I wouldn't know the bartenders. I wouldn't take my clients out there. You know, it's one of the reasons why I love Summit, and I want to be a resident at Summit, and it's one of the reasons why I don't think we'll ever move from Summit as far as a business owner. I hope that you guys can reconsider, and I'm definitely in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric?
Hello. Eric Krasowski again, 169 Broad Street. I'll try not to be redundant in some of the commentary. I will say that I think across the board, there's no argument or very, very limited argument for anybody who doesn't like outdoor dining. So I think one of the universal things that we can say, at least, have a very, very high majority. Everybody enjoys outdoor dining. The manufactured time around May to October, which is actually a duration of 6 months, does not constitute a season. So just kind of thinking, while I personally would opt to keep Maple Street open year-round, I do understand the need for compromise. I think in terms of some of the points that have been echoed around traffic, safety, economic viability for businesses, economic welfare for all 22,000 residents of Summit. I would ask that when you consider this, really rethink or re-engage community members outside of the group that's here this evening. I know there was a manufactured effort to get a large group of people who seem to have a script around the concept of May to October. If I look towards prior resident engagement, I know that was quite limited in nature. SDI, I appreciate the transparency around going out to residents, property owners, resident input, board and commission input, SDI input. There is a lot of overlap in terms of the representation on SDI as well as the boards and commissions. And SDI was the one that had originally collected a lot of the resident feedback. So I think this is a great forum. I would encourage continued forum like this. I know we have a very, very short time window, but would actually advocate for a new survey, which would be issued. I'm more than happy to serve as a volunteer with any others in terms of putting together a constructive survey that is working towards a point of compromise. And again, last thing I'll say, just in terms of the feasibility and practicality around that, if I look at the pool, I have 2 young daughters. Here is where I will pull on the emotions like everybody else did. I would absolutely love if the town pool was open beyond Memorial Day to Labor Day, although reasons of determinations why that is not feasible. So I think, comments have been echoed as it relates to the end of school and start of school. I think that's completely reasonable. It's a 12-week period of time, lots of opportunities specifically for those businesses on Maple, and I know there's been comments made as well about other businesses having the opportunity throughout the day to also utilize some of those resources. So, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, Dory Gagnon again. So I'm going to start off by saying there should be no permanent seasonal closure decisions made this year, period. I am for outdoor dining. I love it. I'm very upset at the email that was sent out and was just distributed to the people here tonight. We come to the council meetings. We are not against outdoor dining by any means. We don't want a full closure. we are for something called a seasonal closure. But what that means, we have absolutely no idea. So this is why. We don't know the impact Broad Street West is going to have on this town. We have absolutely no idea when we build it. And there is going to be something there. But we have no idea what that is going to do to the rest of the town. So if we decide to say, okay, this is going to happen every year, we're going to close Maple Street off. We don't know how the traffic flow is going to be. We have no idea the impact of that congestion and that traffic. We've had several people get hit, one resident pass away. I think making that decision now for the next 10 years, 20 years, whatever, is a really hard decision to make. We don't have any data that was given. SDI needs to be held accountable for that flawed study, that survey that went out to only 1,400 residents. We have 22,000 here. Open-ended questions. And again, what is a seasonal closure? We're all saying, you know, we want 3 months. Well, seasonal to some people is 6 months. What is really seasonal? So we really need to hone in on the facts. What we do need is an urban planner. We need someone to come in that's an outsider and say, this is what's best for the city of Summit. Yeah, everybody loves outdoor dining. We get that. We all love it. I love it too. But let's figure out what's best. I looked at Princeton and what they did. Now, if you guys look at what Princeton, Witherspoon Street, people wanted it there, okay? Just like gas leaf blowers. I looked at what Princeton did for gas leaf blowers. They rolled it out. I think we need to dive into this and really take our time, figure something out for this year, but if you make it permanent for the next 10 years, you might regret it because Broad Street West could bring a whole other slew of problems. The financial analysis is a huge proponent to this. You know, my husband suggested widening the sidewalks to give outdoor dining. Well, Witherspoon Street, they widened the sidewalks, they made it a one-way street and all. So it brought like so many different aspects into it. But again, you know, my husband's, he's a math guy. You know, we were out there with a tape measure trying to really make it feasible for the restaurants and everybody so you could have outdoor dining and sit on the sidewalks all year round. Square Pizza has it. And make it economically feasible for everybody, but you need a planner to do that. We can't do that, and SDI is not the person that you need to rely on. So those are my suggestions, and I really think you need to consider it and not do anything permanent this year, but think about it for the following years. Thank you.
Greg, can I make a comment?
Thank you.
Can I make a comment on that real
Sure.
quick? Thanks. Thank you, Ms. Gagnon. I just want to say that we do have one of those people right here in our room, so. And Phil and I spoke about this the other day. I actually asked Phil what his ideas might be or look like on a Maple Street closure. So maybe with some goodwill, Phil, you could give us some good recommendations because I know we spoke a lot about them. So we can talk about that more. Ms. Gagnon, the other question regarding the email. I was unaware of this email until today. The email, just for your background so that people understand, was from Fiorino's. Mentioning the council is asking residents and patrons in favor to attend the next meeting and to speak during the public hearing. I was not aware of this, so that certainly did not come from me. I just wanted to let the public know that that was certainly not something, and I can't speak for all the council members, but I don't think any of us had advocated for either way, right? We're really trying to be objective through this process. We all love outdoor dining. We see both sides. We all want a safe town. So thank you for your comments.
Mayor, Council President?
Yeah, sure.
That said, if any resident ever has anything they want to come to the council and talk about, you're allowed to organize on Facebook groups. You're allowed to email anyone you want. It's a great idea.
Sure.
Ms. Gagnon asked about not doing anything permanent, and my understanding is we are looking at this year and making a decision about a temporary closure for this year.
Yeah. I think that's fair to say.
I think, you know, we'll see how it goes.
It's not on the agenda.
Yeah, I mean, we have
Well,
nothing, of course, on
right.
the agenda tonight.
But we're
we're
not.
not ready. Obviously, if we had something that was ready to go on the agenda, you'd see it as a resolution or you'd see it as an ordinance. We're getting there, and this is all quite helpful feedback as we continue along that path.
But we are well aware that Maple Street and Broad Street West might come into conflict, and we need to look at both of those. And, you know, that is one reason why I wouldn't support making a decision for multiple years. So you raise a good point, and we are aware of that, and we're talking about this year. I just want to narrow the focus, at least from my point of view.
Sure, Jamie.
I agree with you. I would be inclined to make a decision for this year and then reevaluate.
Tony?
I just have to return the phone to this gentleman here.
That's your good deed for the
That's
day.
my good deed. Good deed was showing up today at 1 o'clock and 2:30 at CAP. Tony Melchione, 42 Maple Street. So it seems like we're becoming a popularity contest here. Who's in favor, who's not in favor? One side wants it, one side doesn't want it. We want full closure, you want any closure at all. We want 2 months, we have 6 months, very confusing. The popularity of this does not trump the legality and the lawfulness of what goes on for this. It's just not like snap, let's close the streets. It doesn't work that way. Safety, we all know about safety. Plenty of people talked about safety here. Traffic chaos, and it's chaos. It's chaos with 2 streets open, let alone now shutting down a major artery through our great downtown. There'll be further chaos. No one's gonna disagree with that. How can you disagree with that? It's bizarre. So if I could say, 50% of the people want this and like this, and 50% of the people don't like this.
Let's,
Thank you for speaking while I'm interrupting you. Let's do 30, and we'll give Mr. Dylan Baker 70.
let's keep the conversation going this way. Thank you. Tony's got the floor. Thank you.
So Dylan says we have 70% of the people that like it, or 30%. Let me tell you what's 100% of the people that like it. Driving down Maple Street, period. And not being traffic jammed and having kids at high risk going to school. I've been here plenty of times. I've spoken with Mr. Jacoby, our city solicitor. Through you, Council President, I'd like to ask a question. If Mr. Jacoby could answer again about the legality and about our famous word that I love so much, arduous task of doing this. Again, you just don't flip a switch and shut down a major thoroughfare, let alone a bid process. Just because 4 or 5 restaurants abut this street does not mean they have the soulful right to this. That's law. You could correct me if I'm wrong.
So
I
what's
also
your
understand.
question, and then I'll ask Mr. Jacoby to address it.
And also today at our meeting that there was a clear path, this is what I understand, City Solicitor, a clear path to shutting down Maple Street, where on November 1st, 2022, it was arduous. It was almost impossible, you said, to shut it down permanently, and even seasonally, or months, when Marjorie Fox was our council president. So if you could just reiterate that. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Jacoby? Sure. Thank you, Tony.
So, when I said it's an arduous process, you were talking about permanent closure. That is more arduous than a seasonal closure, but it's still a process. This council does not have the right. They can't vote right now to close it down. It's not their decision. They have to make an application to the Department of Transportation and follow both regulatory and statutory criteria with an engineer's report meeting different criteria, and ultimately it's the Department of Transportation that makes the call. And if they don't think that it's safe, if they don't think that it's appropriate, they won't grant you the permission to close a street. And even though this isn't a county street, it's not a state street, it's a local street, it's a City of Summit street, you can't close it unless DOT permits it. That's the end of the story. Give you an example, Borough of Leonia. If you know Leonia, Leonia is right near Fort Lee. And when you have people like me who don't know how to do directions, you get Waze or Google Maps, whatever it is, it routes you, changes your direction. So if you're commuting into New York City, it will route you, if traffic backs up on Route 80, it routes you right through Leonia. Well, Leonia got tired of it. They said, this is ridiculous. Our neighborhoods are getting destroyed because we have literally 10 to 20,000 cars cutting through our street. So what they did is they made it one way either way so you couldn't cut through. DOT sued them, said you can't do that. You can't shut down your local streets, you didn't have our permission. So and how do I know that? Because we're the firm that's in the middle of the litigation over that. The reality is that it is arduous. You have to have permission from DOT. It has to be based on engineer study, and it has to be an application. Now, Milburn did it. Milburn did a seasonal closure of a street, and they went through the process. So if this council decides to go through that process, again, this council doesn't make the ultimate decision. They make an application, It's the Department of Transportation that governs all the roadways in New Jersey that will make the ultimate decision to either grant or deny permission to this governing body as to whether or not it can be closed seasonally. Anything more than 48 hours requires their permission. So when I said arduous, it is. It's not something that this council can just summarily do. Occasionally you'll see on an agenda, folks want to close down their neighborhood street for, 12 hours to have a neighborhood block party. This council can do that. It's less than 48 hours. What we're talking about here, it requires state approval.
Thank you.
My name is Gil Oren. I live in Summit, have a business in Summit on Beechwood Road. And when I'm in favor of outdoor dining. I'm not in favor of outdoor dining on Maple Street. Maple Street is one of only two ways to approach Summit from the other side. Summit Avenue and Maple Street. When the governor declared a pandemic emergency in March 9th, 2020, and which ended on March 4, 2022, during that time, I think people could understand helping restaurants, whether it's 4 restaurants or 2 restaurants or 10 restaurants. If they needed help, I think people basically thought that was a good idea. Maple Street is a main artery in our downtown. It's not a side street that is seldom used. When you talk about SDI and the proposal they made, they had a traffic expert that sat in that chair, traffic expert, basically never mentioned Maple Street. Talked about the intersection of Summit Avenue and Union Place. Worthless, worthless. Once that 2022 occurred and the pandemic was lifted, the restaurants then could have full use of their restaurant. And if they have a sidewalk, they could stand places and a sidewalk as well. I'm in favor of outdoor dining. I am not in favor of closing Maple Street, a main artery of downtown, for outside dining. When it's closed and it's dining, Union Place and Beechwood Road are gridlocked to the point where you had to change the parking on Union Place because of that, from 25 minutes to 15 minutes. You're nibbling at the end of the problem. Leave Maple Street, the main artery it is, and outside dining may occur somewhere else with a road that is not a main artery. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Bob Pulowski, 3 Crestacre Court. Spring must be on the horizon. We've heard from a lot of people tonight who want to dine outside, and they want to close Maple Street to do it. People love it. But is that enough to close a street? There's much more to it than popularity, and I'm glad to hear, Council President, that you're looking into safety and legality. The due diligence required before the council can make a decision on this issue, to borrow a word from our esteemed city solicitor, who shares my taste in sneakers, by the way, and Tony's new favorite word, is arduous. It's arduous. Council President Vartan, you said when you took the gavel that you had respect for the, quote, respect for the intentionally slow and deliberative pace of government. I assume what you meant by that was that when a city council considers a proposed measure, no matter how popular it may be, that the council should not act on impulse or emotion. And it's obvious here tonight that you want to implement a seasonal closure for this spring or summer. But I'm not sure your timetable is enough. I think you would agree that, especially when considering whether to close a city street, this council should not simply figure out a way to do it because people want to do it. You should be circumspect. You should thoroughly analyze the pros and cons, and you should ask lots of questions. Three main questions are on the top of my mind. The first, and others have touched on it tonight, is it safe? And I'll remind you what Mr. Owen just said, which is that there's only 2 routes connecting the north and south sides of town. Eliminating one would impact emergency vehicle response times back and forth across town. It will. You don't need a study to tell you that. Similarly, will emergency vehicles be able to get to our historic buildings on the closed Maple Street in the case of an emergency? How? What's the plan? Hopefully you guys are thinking about that. How will closing Maple impact traffic circulation? It's a major problem when Maple's closed during the school year. And I've said this before, and I'll remind you again, Summit's master plan has an entire section dedicated to circulation. And it names Maple Street as important to the proper movement of people and goods through the community. And it admonishes that, quote, it should be safeguarded from overuse and intrusive development. The third major question is it legal? My understanding is that a municipality can't simply close a road based on popular opinion. What must be done in order to close Maple legally? I understand you guys are looking into that. So I would expect that this council and its various committees are working hard to vet these and other issues, and maybe even issues that we have not thought of. I look forward to hearing the detailed results of that vetting before this council makes any kind of a vote. Dylan Baker from Summit House is a driving force for outdoor dining on Maple Street. Our sons are friends. And mine came home one day with a barbacoa sweatshirt on and a huge grin on his face. And he explained to me how they, Sam and Chase, think it's hilarious that Mr. Baker and I hate each other. I laughed and I explained I have no ill will towards Mr. Baker, whom I've never met, but I'll come introduce myself when this is all over tonight. I explained that Mr. Baker's just passionate about the issue, and he's simply doing what he believes to be best for Summit, and I am too. My view is that before we can seriously entertain any more seasonal closures of Maple Street, there's a lot of work to do. This is serious stuff, and we've got to be sure, no matter how popular, that it's the right thing for Summit. Thanks.
Thank you. I hope that this is maybe the start of a beautiful friendship. But we'll see. It's tough. It's hard work. But we'll definitely need an update on that. That does sound like me. Respect for the intentionally slow and deliberative pace of government. The second half of what I said was, but we will vigorously pursue the things that will make Summit an even stronger community. And I think we are certainly at our first meeting this year after 10 o'clock, putting in the time to make sure that we're listening to what people are telling us. And of course, we will vet the questions that you've asked, and they are questions that have already been asked of our professionals, and they're seriously considering. So more.
You also said that you would very carefully pursue the goals of the master plan. So
yes, sir.
Don't forget what it says about
Yes,
Maple.
sir. All right.
Other quote for quote.
Okay.
Council President, can I just make
Yes.
my comments?
Sure.
I just want to say, there was talk about a letter circulating. I didn't know that there was a letter circulating. I didn't encourage anyone to come tonight, but I do encourage people to always come. And I'm encouraged that while these issues are always sticky, that people are showing up. And I appreciate the levity, because sometimes we're under the impression in our society today that because we disagree, we are enemies, and that is not true. Dylan Baker lives in, you go to Franklin, you're a Franklin family. We have friends that are friends, and I love outdoor dining. And I think as we go through this deliberative process, there's an emotional side to this, but there's, for me as a council person, there's a legal side. And I think I really want to give credit to Councilwoman Levine, who's taken every single call that I've had because I have a lot of questions. It's encouraging to me to hear that it would be, I'm assuming that it would only be this year. And ultimately, our job on this dais, because we have friends in the community, we want to do all the right things, and we want to be mindful of moms that have to cross town and commuters also, making sure that it's safe, it's legal, and it's time constrained. And there's no ill will to those deliberating over those ideas and making sure that if something ever did happen, and we can say this all day long, but if something really did happen, we have signed our name on this law, and I have to live with those consequences. So I just want to remind everybody that I love Fiorino's. I go there with my friend Doug St. Amant quite often. So I will work very hard to try to make the best decision in the interest of this community, because I think we all love this community. There are no enemies. So thank you.
All right.
Through you, Council President.
Yes, sure.
Thank you, Councilwoman Allen. I actually echo a lot of what you said, so thank you for making those comments. We will, and I'll be very brief, and I said this to Tony today when we met, we will proceed to do nothing unless it is legal and safe.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other, yes?
And I'd just like to add that we have, in the past years, when we've opened Maple Street for dining, we've only done what is legal and safe. We've had extensive conversations each time we made this decision. So I just don't want to leave any doubt in anyone's mind that we didn't just do this willy-nilly. You know, every year we've had these discussions, lengthy discussions with our lawyer, with our safety professionals, with our engineer, and we will continue to do the same.
If I just want to remind everybody, when this all started, it was literally right when the pandemic was at its infancy, and this governing body, some of them who are new, made the decision to try to save businesses in your town. I mean, that's what was the impetus, the parklets, the closures, et cetera. And Governor Murphy, saw that because it was going on in lots of communities. And that's why you saw, and one of the gentlemen read the executive order. I mean, it literally spanned, the emergency order spanned 2 years. The president's order actually spanned it longer. But with that said, I think everyone was looking, how do we get businesses to survive, and then how do we get kids back to school? Lots of stuff was being done to try to keep downtown Summit vibrant. And frankly, there was lots of passes. There was lots of, I represent a lot of school districts. How do you reopen schools? There was no playbook for this. We were basically, I wasn't alive in 1918, so I didn't really know what the rules were with pandemics. But again, as I said, there's a process. My job is to provide legal guidance. I work with Aaron Schrager as the engineer. And whatever the council decides to do, there's a process which this decision is just one step of a process. There's a much larger process that has to go down. And again, just so everyone knows, whenever you're involving state government, many of you guys don't have the privilege of working with state government. I can assure you that it's slow and deliberate, really slow and deliberate, because a lot of them even aren't back at work yet. So, when I say it's arduous, that's one of the things. It's just a long process whenever you're involving state government. So, just wanted to share that with everyone. But at the end of the day, it really did start here at this council before there was any executive orders permitting this. You guys, I think, did it to try to make sure that Summit stayed vibrant, and it seems to have worked.
Thank you. Public comments. We're still in the public comments section. All right. I think we're gonna close this part of the meeting. Thank you to everyone who participated in that, council members and members of the community. We will now move to the council member comments and new business section. Council members, new business comments?
I have a comment.
Yes.
If that's okay. So coming up later this month, I'm excited to say that I'm meeting with the new Director of Parks and Recreation for Union County. They'll come to the Capital Projects Committee meeting, and so Councilmember Fox will be there too, and also Councilmember Hamlet will be there, because the Community Programs Committee is kind of, we're sort of doing this together. So we're excited to meet with her to hear updates on programs that overlap with the county within our municipalities, such as Bryant Pond, some of the paving activities around town. And really, that's one objective, is to hear those updates, but also to foster a relationship as she's new in her role, so that we can have open lines of communication and have an easy way of sharing information and hearing updates and collaborating and working together. So we'll look forward to providing updates or providing just a bit of a summary of how the meeting goes afterwards.
Thank you. Susan?
Thank you, Council President. I am raising something that I raised in the summer months, and there still has been no movement at Bryant Pond for dredging. What's happening, Aaron?
Well, I think part of that is going to come from this update that we're getting from the new Director of Parks and Recreation at Union County. So hopefully we'll get an update on that during the meeting. But the understanding is they're waiting on state approval for that as well, right?
No.
Or permitting? I'm sorry.
No,
You should just answer the question.
Go for it.
Yeah,
Why don't you just,
If I could through you, Council President, the latest update from the county is they're still awaiting their specifications to bid out the hydro raking process first. They don't have that back as of last week. Then they will bid that out and start with the hydro raking process, which is basically removing some of the vegetation that's physically in the pond. Then they'll begin the aeration system. Now, they are considering right now flipping the order, so actually doing the hydro raking in the fall and starting the aeration soon. But we should get an update next week, but that's their recent update. But they are permitted to do what they need to do. There's just one, they need to get a contractor for the hydro raking, and then the timing of the aeration. So,
Is there any concern about the impact when there is nothing being done? I saw a mortifying event when a swarm of they weren't pelicans, but they were the biggest birds I've ever seen in my life.
Geese, probably.
The geese. Did you see that?
It's too bad they weren't pelicans.
And, I mean, they were that big. I said, these can't be pelicans. But I wondered, I said, is this now becoming a haven for them? Is this an ecological byproduct of the neglect of Bryant Pond? And I just wanted to mention that. Are they paying attention?
they are, and we hope to get answers from them in terms of their current timeline when we meet with them. I can't answer those questions. I'm not I don't even know what
really
scientists would. I mean, but whether geese would probably be there if there's water or if it's just muck. They tend to be everywhere at this point. They're migratory birds that don't migrate.
So if anybody at home is playing council meeting bingo, you could cross off pelicans from the. Thank you. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Greg.
Okay, other council member comments? New business? Now I'm in on it though, so, it's ruined. I ruined it for you, sorry. Okay, other council member comments?
Just one, like, 10-second one. Just so that everybody knows, we reviewed the maybe playground initial drawings on Monday, I think, right, Aaron? Monday we did that? It's all running together. Was that last night? Oh, God, it was last night. A lot of time. We did get those, we're looking at those actively with the advisory committee, so I continue to be impressed with Mark and David and the work, and Andy obviously was the initial one who was spearheading all of these efforts, so thank you. We were very surprised at the costs. I think they were like triple what we thought, so we will have to do a deep dive and get Suburban to do some hard work for us, so looking forward to sharing those with the public in the appropriate amount of time.
Thank you. All right, other council member comments? Any new business? No? All right, well, now I think we're ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a motion? And, wait, did I get a motion?
So moved.
Okay, second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you very much.